Hello and welcome to Newsroom. We're coming to you live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg. I'm Shante Yankees. Thank you very much for joining me because I'm flying as solo today. Very happy Friday to you. Thank you very much for joining us. I will start with your question of the day. What do you make of the Brenda Fassie movie controversy? Please send us your comments on @SABC Newsroom. We have had a look at some of the tweets that have been coming through. Thomas says the movie can go ahead, but they mustn't expect Chico to allow them to use songs he owns on the movie without paying him royalties. They can use songs from other albums like Umuntu Uyajinja, but Arthur will also demand royalties because the album was released by 999. This one coming in from Atini. Chico Twala must behave, hold your horses, sir, and leave Bongani. That one coming in from Atini. Continue to send us your tweets for our question of the day. We'll have a look at that throughout the course of the morning. Our poll today, we ask, do you agree with President Jacob Zuma's decision to appeal the High Court ruling that he is too conflicted to appoint the National Director of Public Prosecutions? Let's see what the comments are looking like on social media. Sitle says he has a right to appeal if he felt that there was no justice on his side. And coming in from Sitle, Delele says, why should we be surprised by this? We all knew what his reaction was going to be. Appeal, appeal, appeal to frustrate and delay the process. That is his strategy. #NPA, #SABC News. And indeed, continue to send us your comments. We will have a look at them throughout the poll and see what those numbers are doing. All your news and updates coming up. But first, let's have a look at your Friday morning headlines. Well, tributes have been pouring in for former Bopu Tatswane Homeland Leader and UCDP President Lucas Manyane Mangope. President Jacob Zuma has filed papers to appeal the Pretoria High Court ruling that he's too conflicted to appoint the National Director of Public Prosecutions. Deputy Director for Mental Health Services in Gauteng, Hannah Jacobus, has accused her former boss, Dr. Mapobo Manamela, of lying under oath. Let's have a look at your top story at 9 o'clock. Well, tributes have been pouring in for former Bopu Tatswane Homeland Leader and UCDP President Lucas Manyane Mangope. He died at his home in Motswedi village yesterday at the age of 94. UDM leader Bantu Olomisa says Mangope should be remembered as someone who developed the area in which he governed. Olomisa has sent his condolences to the family. Mangope governed the Bopu Tatswane homeland for almost 2 decades until 1994, when the country became reincorporated into South Africa.
As early as 1992, when the South African talks over a new dispensation resumed, Mangope was not willing to give up his sovereignty. In the process, losing out on the opportunity to participate in the first South African democratic elections, a recipe for instability for a Bantu stand that for many years enjoyed relative peace, looting of property, arrests of those seen to be fueling trouble, invasion of the capital city, Mabatu, by the AWB, and regrettable killings.
They didn't take over control, they looted control. There was a lot of criminal looting in Mabatu, and the South African government looted political power.
General Puteho Sileke, one of Mangope's trustees, explained that Mangope believed he had enough friends to support him.
He warned the defense force. He said to them on that day, look, gentlemen, if you feel you cannot toe the line with me, give me that which is mine and leave the defense force.
Even his friend, the then South African Foreign Minister, Big Botha, drew blank in his attempt to persuade Mangope to give up power.
It was my duty to put it to President Mangope in a friendly, courteous but firm way that, look, Mr. President, it's over.
Mangope A former ANC Youth League member in his early years missed out in the first democratic elections. The 1999 and 2000 elections breathed fresh air to the United Christian Democratic Party and saw it making a dramatic comeback. Mangope's return to South African politics took him only as far as becoming the leader of the official opposition party in the Northwest. Silwane Khachau, SABC News, Mahikeng in the Northwest.
Well, President Jacob Zuma has filed papers to appeal the Pretoria High Court ruling that he's too conflicted to appoint the National Director of Public Prosecutions. The court ruled that the president should recuse himself and that Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa should be the one to make the appointment. The court also ordered the Director of Public Prosecutions to vacate his position as his appointment was declared invalid. The NPA is appealing this decision. The judgment was handed down early last month by a full bench of the court, read out by Judge President Dunstan Mlambo. The court had also ordered that the president pay legal costs. Well, speaking earlier on Morning Live, political analyst Levi Ndo gave reasons as to why President Jacob Zuma lodged an appeal.
I think President Zuma is trying to, at his best, to buy time in order to delay the appointment of the Director of Public Prosecutions so that this matter can actually be resolved at a very, very late stage. But also at the same time, you know, President Zuma has always been in the courts and he seemed to be very much comfortable in taking matters to court. But lastly, and I think which is very, very important for me, is that the people that are surrounding President Zuma, especially his confidence, don't seem to be providing the best of advices. Because if you have this kind of a situation where President Zuma is filing papers to appeal, for me, he should have discussed this with certain individuals that are very close to him, whom I think would have advised him otherwise. But unfortunately, I think President Zuma is not getting the best of advices.
Meanwhile, the future of President Jacob Zuma will not be discussed at the ANC National Executive Committee meeting at Irene outside Pretoria. This is according to Secretary General Ace Magashule. Well, even with speculation rife about the future of President Jacob Zuma, the party says it's not part of the discussion.
It's the first formal meeting of the governing party since their election in December last year. Whilst they met to draft the January 8 statement in East London last week, issues facing the party will only be dealt with here. Even with speculation rife about the future of President Jacob Zuma, the party says it's not part of the discussion.
No, it's not an issue on the table. Remember, we said in East London that there is interaction between President Zuma as well as President Ramaphosa, and that interaction will be continuing.
Despite appointing various subcommittees, this gathering will also decide on the future of KwaZulu-Natal and Free State provincial committees. The courts nullified them just before the elective conference in December. The party says it will also tackle the ongoing issue of racism in schools. There are instances where learners have not been placed due to language issues. The party will soon roll out the January 8 statement rallies across the provinces. Mzondeli Mbeje, SABC News, Pretoria.
The Deputy Director for Mental Health Services in Gauteng, Hannah Jacobus, has accused her former boss, Dr. Makgobo Manamela, of lying under oath. She says Manamela's version that she did not impose more patients on NGOs than they could care for is simply not true. Well, yesterday, Jacobus told the Life Esidimeni arbitration hearings that Manamela also instructed her to flout regulations with regard to issuing licenses to NGOs due to tight deadlines in light of the imminent closure of facilities. She further said Manamela took away some of her core responsibilities regarding compiling licenses and delegated those responsibilities to other officials without her knowledge. Manamela and former HOD Dr. Barney Selabano resigned this week before the finalization of their disciplinary hearings. Jacobus escaped with a final written warning following her disciplinary hearing, and she doesn't believe she should resign. She will face more questions when the hearings resume today. A mental health expert is also expected to testify today, with the former health MEC Qedani Matlangu expected at the hearing on Monday. Cape Town Mayor Patricia de Lille says the city is likely to scrap the drought levy charge proposal during a special council sitting today due to public outcry. The city will also be implementing level 6B water restrictions from the 1st of next month, with users allowed only 50 litres per day. De Lille warns that the point of no return has been reached, as 60% of residents are disregarding the 87-litre daily quota usage.
A stark reality. Residents face the very real prospect of reaching day zero in late April. Dams are effectively at 18.6% of usable water. When they reach 13.5, taps are expected to be turned off. The city says the day has become increasingly likely as residents far exceed the total daily quota usage of 500 million litres. Level 6B water restrictions are to be implemented next month. This will mean daily water usage will be set at 50 litres per person per day. Cape Town Mayor Patricia de Lille says 60% of water users continue to blatantly disregard water restrictions.
The people still abusing and wasting water seem to have it in their minds that day zero just can't happen, or that the city's 7 augmentation projects set to produce about 200 million litres of water per day will be enough to save us. This is not the case.
The City Council is set to vote on scrapping a drought levy intended to raise money for vital water augmentation projects.
At this point, part of the reticulation system will be shut off. Only informal areas will be able to collect water through their reticulation system, being taps, because they already are living in a setting where they are sharing communal taps. In addition to that, the city will obviously be mindful of key sites such as hospitals and clinics, and we'll try to keep those operational.
Projects including the drilling at aquifer sites and the construction of desalination plants are also underway. However, the City of Cape Town says 7 water augmentation projects providing 200 million litres of water per day will not be enough to stop day zero. The City Council will also vote on punitive tariffs to set significantly higher tariffs for residents who use more than 6,000 litres per month. Residents have expressed mixed reaction regarding the proposed new restrictions and tariffs.
50, I don't think it's okay for me, because we use lots of things to water. Some water you drink, you wash, and then when you go to the bathroom, and then also you must flush the toilet.
Well, personally, I have a couple of buckets in the shower, fill up the buckets before the water gets warm kind of thing. Just try and use water sparingly.
Disaster management is finalizing the logistics of the 200 water collection sites, and details will be announced soon. Lyndon Khan, SABC News, Cape Town.
Well, the family of a Brits lesbian couple whose child remains were found after missing on the 10th of December 2017 say that it will only get relief once the DNA results test positive. They said this during a bail application of 8 accused who are linked to the death of Joey and Anisha van Niekerk at the local magistrates court in the northwest. The 8 are accused of kidnapping, assaulting and murdering the couple.
It's a month since Joey and Anisha van Niekerk's disappearance. The suspects are not to be identified before they have pleaded. The 8th was arrested over the weekend. They are accused of shooting the couple and burning their remains following an alleged squabble over their property. The first accused pleaded not guilty to all charges. He accused police of assaulting him to force him to confess. He's also allegedly linked to the murder of a woman Rustenburg farm owner in 2014. The Van Niekerk's families say they're still awaiting confirmation that the remains found in the area are those of Joey and Anisha.
I think one of the biggest things that we're waiting for is the results of the DNA testing. I think that would help us a lot if we could have a memorial service or a church service to lay the deceased to rest.
The bail application continues on Friday. Sintle Inglihihi, SABC News, Brits.
Well, the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein will today hand down judgment in the Mandela home ownership dispute. Struggle stalwart Winnie Madikizela Mandela, who is Nelson Mandela's ex-wife, argued that the High Court in Mthatha ignored overwhelming evidence at its disposal when it dismissed her application in April of 2016. The property was bequeathed to Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela Family Trust by the former president for the benefit of the Mandela family. Madikizela Mandela has argued that the then Land Affairs Minister, Derek Hanekom, did not consult with the family before donating the land to Nelson Mandela in November of 1997. The executives, however, say that Mandela will not deprive Madikizela Mandela of her informal rights to the property. It simply states that the property should be administrated by the family trust. Winnie Madikizela Mandela is to be honoured by the Makerere University with an honorary Doctor of Laws. The 81-year-old veteran politician is being recognised for her contribution towards the fight and eventual elimination of apartheid in South Africa.
Both the University Council and Senate, the topmost academic and administrative organs of the university, have approved the award. Makerere University had wanted to recognize Winnie Mandela in August last year during the Nelson Mandela commemorative lecture, but due to ill health, Winnie Madikizela Mandela could not be able to travel. This information was conveyed to the Office of the Vice-Chancellor by the South African High Commission in Kampala.
Zasu says that while the ANC stole outside the legal framework, the DA thieves in the city of Cape Town within the legal framework. The Trade Union Federation, South Africa's largest, was responding to reports that the DA-run city of Cape Town is paying a public relations firm, Resolve Communications, headed by its former leader Tony Leon and communications director Nick Cleland, over 658,000 rand to improve the city's drought crisis communication. The party has also seen Cape Town Mayor Patricia de Lille openly defying its bid to charge her, while in Gauteng claims of nepotism and misconduct are made. Well, all these recent developments have led to reports of rampant corruption in the party. SABC News spoke to James Self, who is the DA Federal Executive Chair of these issues.
Well, I think it would be premature for us to speculate on that yet. There is a process that has been started. There are two reports, as you correctly said, that will be considered by the party's federal executive, and the very detailed representations that were made by Mayor de Lille in response to those. And the federal executive is going to have to think very carefully about those representations, and is going to have to take a decision that is in the interests of both the voters of Cape Town and of the Democratic Alliance.
Well, de Lille has stated that she will not resign as mayor. What happens in a case like this?
Well, I think it is again premature for her to make those sorts of statements, because we haven't taken a decision yet. And were we to take a decision that it would be desirable for her to step down, and I'm not saying that that's necessarily what's going to happen, then there are any number of scenarios that could play themselves out, including a motion of no confidence in the city of Cape Town.
Well, that was where I was going to go with this. I mean, explain exactly how this works, because as far as we know, the investigation might still be going on at the time.
Yes, that's correct. The council on last Friday extended the scope and mandate of the Bowman-Gilfillan investigation and also ordered that 2 disciplinary inquiries take place against 2 senior managers. Now, it may very well be that in the course of those investigations, still further evidence and allegations emerge. And it may be a better idea to wait for those investigations to be completed before taking any decision.
Because, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it would almost be as if the DA has found her guilty already without having an investigation completed.
Correct. Look, one of the investigations is completed. That was the internal party investigation, which really deals with internal matters. The other investigation deals with governance issues, and those are, in one sense, much more serious.
The question, I suppose, that needs to be asked as well as, will we ever, as the public, get to see the hard evidence of corruption and fraud against Patricia de Lille? I mean, stuff that the DA claims to have?
Well, I don't think the DA has ever claimed that we have evidence of corruption against Mayor de Lille. There are some, in our view, prima facie serious governance issues that need to be addressed in a purposeful way. And the question that we have to ask ourselves is whether she has the ability and the confidence of the party to be able to resolve those governance issues in the way that the law demands and in the way that the public demand, because we hold our leaders accountable. And if they make mistakes, they need to take responsibility for them.
How do you believe the party will restore the mayor's name if the allegations and investigation turns out to be untrue?
Well, then I hope that what will happen is that there will be a very full ventilation of the report so that everybody can see it and everybody can see what the allegations were, how the allegations were dealt with, and how the mayor was vindicated, if that's what's going to happen.
You know, there seems to be, and there is talk of a lot of infighting within the DA, particularly with leadership in the Western Cape, and perhaps talk of wanting to replace Patricia de Lille with somebody else, and this is just one way of doing it. Can you confirm or deny these rumours?
Well, I don't think that sort of analysis helps much, because as far as we are concerned, there are allegations of a governance failure and of a degree of maladministration. Now, it would be grossly irresponsible of us not to have dealt with those matters as a matter of urgency, and we did do that. We are now considering her responses to that, which is only fair given the nature of the allegations. And it may very well be that that she will be vindicated. Yeah. But I don't think that the analysis that there's infighting in the DA has anything to do with the separate issue of how the matter of the governance in the city of Cape Town is being managed.
Just as we close up, obviously this is not nice for the party. It really is, and particularly for the Western Cape. And a lot of people, again, having a look at the situation and saying, well, Patricia de Lille was used to win over the coloured vote. And how is this going to affect the vote going forward? Is it a concern for you? Are you worried at this point?
Yeah, well, there are those considerations that we have to take into account. But the most important consideration is, do we run an effective, corruption-free, effective government in the city of Cape Town? Because that is what distinguishes us from our competitors. We run good governments. Now, if we don't run a good government in the Western Cape or in the city of Cape Town, then we need to take steps about it. And maybe those steps have political costs, but we cannot allow a situation to develop where one of our governments is less than satisfactory in delivering the sort of government that we promised the voters in 2016.
Well, we will be speaking to political analyst Professor Dirk Kotza on the thoughts about what is happening in the DA. For now, though, let's have a look at what's taking place on our social media. We'll start off with our picture of the day on Newsroom. This one comes in from Mumed on Lucas Mangope. May his soul rest in peace. Of course, the sad news coming in and many deaths at the beginning of this time of the year. May his soul rest in peace and may his legacy live on. Let's have a look at the comment of the day. This one comes from Connie. Some might have seen him as a dictator, some might have seen him as a leader, but for the remnants of his rule, like myself, we also got to see and understand his power, and we are super grateful. Hashtag Lucas Mangope. Of course, we have also been asking you to send in your tributes and how you remember him under that hashtag. Let's have a look at what's taking place in and around our courts today. First up, we'll start off in the Free State Province. The Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein will today hand down judgment in the Mandela home ownership dispute. Struggles Dawad, Winnie Madikizela Mandela, a former President Nelson Mandela's ex-wife, has argued with the High Court in Mthatha, saying that it has ignored overwhelming evidence as its disposal when it dismissed her application back in 2016 in April. The property was bequeathed to the Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela Family Trust by the late former president for the benefit of the Mandela family. Let's have a look at what's making headlines in our courts in the Northwest. In Brits, the Brits Magistrate Court in the Northwest is expected to continue with cross-examination of 8 accused in the murder of the Moinoi couple this morning. Joey and Anisha Panikark disappeared on the 10th of December last year and were found killed, and their bodies as well as their vehicle was burnt. Yesterday, 2 of the 8 were cross-examined during their bail application. They all face charges of kidnapping, robbery, rape and murder. Along the coast in KwaZulu-Natal, the murder trial of SACP member Nontikilelo Blose, shot dead in Ichanga in 2016, continues at the Durban Regional Court. The court heard evidence that the mood between the two groups of the ANC and the SACP supporters in an Ichanga tavern west of Durban turned from playful to tense before an SACP activist was shot dead. The SACP members were celebrating the victory of breakaway candidate Malombo Nxumalo, who stood as an independent after he was not happy with the ANC nomination process in the eThekwini Metro. We will be keeping you updated on this and other cases before our courts. Of course, do stay tuned to Newsroom as we take a short break.
Your evening well informed with primetime news.
Thanks for tuning in. You're watching SABC News Prime. The burning land reform issue was also a point of discussion on the first day.
If you do not have a skills revolution, you will run into the kind of problems that we're having at the moment.
We have funded about 466,000 students, out of about 800,000 students that are in the university system.
South Africa says insufficient electricity and water remains one of the biggest barriers to development and prosperity on the continent.
The top 4 batsmen in the squad, Hashim Amla, Quinton de Kock, Faf du Plessis and AB de Villiers, are certainties in the starting lineup.
I really believe we cover all bases when it comes to spin bowling, seam bowling, proper pace bowling and an amazing batting lineup.
Stay tuned every Monday to Sunday from 6 p.m.
Africans are increasingly using digital platforms for life, work and play.
Information is key for us. We live in an information age. We live in the digital age.
I'm mostly on WhatsApp because not all my friends have iPhones, so they don't have FaceTime.
On Network, we tell you about Africa's technology and social media landscape. And some here are using the internet to raise political concerns.
Some of the exposés on political issues come from what we call your diasporic online media.
Africans are also using technology to create. For African technology and social media news, join me, Phumelele Zondi, on Network every Sunday at 9 p.m.
Welcome back. Well, Patricia de Lille has been stripped of her duties of managing the drought crisis, yet she addressed a briefing on Thursday where it was announced that water curbs are to be intensified. Well, this is despite a directive from the DA stripping her of her powers to deal with matters pertaining to the drought. To analyse the DA's infighting in the Western Cape, we are now joined from our Pretoria studio by Professor Dirk Okotza. Very good morning to you, Professor. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Let's just discuss the timing of the DA's internal crisis, that they are being subjected to scrutiny at the exact time that the ANC is embracing somewhat renewal in its party.
That is indeed so, but I think one should go back to the last year this time, in February, when Patricia de Lille resigned as the provincial leader of the DA, and then she gave the explanation that she wants to concentrate only on her duties as the mayor. But that wasn't a very convincing explanation. At the same time, we saw later on the election of a new provincial leader, Bonginkosi Madikizela. And what we are now seeing also is the way in which the Premier of the province, Helen Zille, is over time moving out of the DA in view of the coming election next year. So there's several aspects that I think one has to take into account. There is certainly a change in leadership in the Western Cape, both at the level of Cape Town as the metro, as well as the province. And there is also some positioning that is taking place within the DA of possible successors that want to take up these positions. So it's not only, I would say, a matter about responding to the ANC. The DA is, after the local government election in Cape Town, in a very strong position. They have more than a 2/3 majority there. At the provincial level, they are also in a very strong position, while the ANC is in a very weak position at this stage in the Western Cape. They, with this last national conference, for example, they moved to the last position with the least number of ANC members in the whole country.
Now, the DA's growth has somewhat been based on the absorption of other parties. If the DA does fire Patricia de Lille, will this not compromise some of the votes in the Western Cape?
I think that there is definitely a potential for that. In the previous interviews there was with James Self, there was a reference to the possible impact on the coloured voters in the province. I do think that can have an effect on the DA, but at this stage there's very little of opposition to the DA in the Western Cape as well as in Cape Town. So though there is that risk, and also the fact that there's a big difference between local government elections and provincial and national elections in terms of voter turnout, and there should be therefore an expectation that the ANC will do slightly better in the national and provincial elections than in the local government election of 2016, that it is not yet a very sort of real contest between the ANC and the DA at this point in time. I think what one has to look at is to what extent some voters that are traditional DA supporters will not vote in this coming election and not vote for other political party, but rather stay away. That is one potential. But I think the point that really is, how is the DA leadership going to manage this now? And this is what they are trying to do with these investigations, with these reports that they have received, the fact that it has been referred now to the Federal Legal Commission for investigation and to report by March. These are all trying to portray this process as not a political process, but rather as one that's based on due process. And it will be, we will have to see to what extent it will make an impact of creating the impression that this is a fair process, that it has a high level of credibility, and it is not about political infighting. I personally think that it's impossible for the DA to pretend that it is not about the positioning that is taking place for both the control of Cape Town as a metro, as well as the provincial position within the DA itself, therefore the succession that has to take place.
Professor, what do you make of Patricia de Lille's reaction to the charges against? Of course, she has been barred from any activities from the DA. However, we saw her leading a presser yesterday with regards to the water crisis that the DA is dealing with in the Western Cape. What do you make of the reaction and the stance that she has taken, number one, against, of course, the charges against her and her leadership in the province?
Well, if she was going to stand back and allow this to happen, that they will take away some of their very significant powers, especially now with the water crisis in Cape Town, that will be an indication of political weakness. So she has almost no option but to do it this way, to fight back, and in order to try to set aside the accusations against her. I think that the problem for her is that it is, as I tried to indicate, it is not only about, it's not only a political issue, it's not only about her political position, but it is also about the way in which she relates to the rest of the party, the DA in general. As we know, the DA is going through quite a dramatic transition with a new leadership that was elected in 2015. Now, in the first half of this year, there's going to be the next Federal Congress where the national leadership has to be elected again, a new leadership, or re-elected. And it means that the positioning is taking place again within the DA. And the Mmusi Maimane leadership, I think, tries to establish itself not only in the Western Cape but in other provinces also. It wants to develop a national presence, that it is becoming less dependent on the votes from the Western Cape, that the political balance is shifting away from the Western Cape to other provinces like Gauteng, to some extent the KwaZulu-Natal also. And in that process, the power relationship within the party is therefore changing and, in a sense, taking away some of the power of the Western Cape and distributing it to other parts. And that obviously will the response from the Western Cape DA leadership will be to fight back, to keep that privileged position that they had for so many years. And I think that's part of the reconfiguration that is taking place within the DA at this stage. And the fact that the DA is becoming a much more diverse party than in the past. It is also a younger party in terms of leadership. The older leadership, the older generation is moving out to some extent. Both Helen Zille and I expect that Patricia de Lille will follow the same route. That is all part of this transformation or reform that is taking place within the DA.
Indeed, thank you very much for joining us via satellite in Pretoria, Professor Dirk Kotza from the University of South Africa, discussing the internal possible factionalism that is taking place in the DA. Let's have a look at what's happening on our Facebook page. Deputy Director for Mental Health Services in Gauteng, Hannah Jacobus, has accused her former boss, Dr. Makgobo Manamela, of lying under oath. She says Manamela's version that she did not impose more patients on NGOs than they could actually care for is simply not true. Then we move on. There is calm on Friday morning at Hoërskool Oeverval in Vereniging as learners make their way back to school. Well, since the school opened on Wednesday, chaos had broken out outside the premises, resulting in at least 20 people being arrested for public violence. And finally, former Crime Intelligence Officer Lesiba Shabalala, KGB, has been arrested on allegations of fraud and is on Friday expected to apply for bail in the Pretoria Special Commercial Crimes Court. Simply search SABC Newsroom on Facebook, follow us and interact with us. I want to see more of those stories. Let's have a look now at what's making headlines front page and center globally. We'll start off in Nigeria this morning. The Vanguard reports that in a bid to ensure peaceful coexistence of farmers and herdsmen in the state, the Ondo state government said it would not prohibit cattle rearing, but quick to point out that plans are underway to regulate the activities of herdsmen and their cattle. Moving to Europe, the Times says white-collar criminals are acting with impunity, with fewer than 10 prosecutions for insider trading in the past 5 years, an investigation has found. And finally, in Israel, the Jerusalem Post reports that Israel has strongly apologized for the July incident in which 2 Jordanians were killed at the Israeli embassy compound in Amman and promised to compensate the victims' families, a Jordanian government spokesman had said last night. Indeed, while it is day 2 of the live SABC arbitration hearings currently taking place after a 6-week break. Of course, Johanna Jacobus is back in the spotlight this morning. Let's cross live.
And that makes them more vulnerable.
Yes, Council.
Or they end up in conflict with the law, which also makes them vulnerable, isn't that so?
Yes, Council, it happens.
And you probably also know that there's not sufficient care in society, in community, to care for these people at the moment.
Yes, Council.
And you know that there's stigmatization involved with them.
Yes, Council.
All of this just adds up to extremely vulnerable.
Yes, Council, it does.
And they need to be protected.
Yes,
You agree
Council.
with that?
Yes, Council.
You also probably know of the move in 2007 from Life Esidimeni Paneng to Kwezi Langusu of the children.
Yes, Council.
Everybody knows about that.
Yes.
And that children died
Yes.
as a result of that.
Yes, Council.
And you also know when they got back to Life Esidimeni, they were undernourished and they were dehydrated.
Yes, Council.
So in your mind as an official, with experience as you have, you probably would have seen the red lights
Yes, Council.
of this project, isn't that so?
Yes, Council.
And you would probably have wanted to make sure that this doesn't happen again as happened to the children in 2007.
Yes, Council.
Now, it seems to me also that you knew in the start of this project that the procedure was completely wrong. You
Yes.
testified to it yesterday.
Yes, Council.
And you also knew, as per your evidence yesterday, that the implementation thereof was completely wrong.
Yes, Council.
And you probably knew that people were going to die. Isn't that so?
Yes, Council.
And we know that people had died.
Yes, Council.
Now, we also know that before the people died, they probably suffered. You will agree with me.
Yes, Council.
And you will also agree with me that the people that survived but did not die, they also suffered.
Yes, Council.
And we can't measure what has happened only by the people that has died. We must look at the suffering of those that survived. You will agree.
I agree, Council.
You will also agree with me that the families suffered.
Yes, Council.
Now, my question to you is, we're coming from the same page here. What was your role in all of this?
My role that was assigned to me was to look at certain hospitals that needed to be renovated to place these patients, and then some clinics or some of the areas that needs to open for extension or new NGOs that needed to be visited.
Okay, let me just rephrase the question. Sorry, Mrs. Jacobus. My question is, in all the suffering, in all the deaths, what was your role in those?
My role in the department.
No.
Oh,
what role were you playing, now looking back, in the deaths and the suffering?
My role looking in the death and suffering of the project that emanated to all the events was when the users was transferred down to NGO levels to visit as much of these NGOs, and also when they were contacted me. And when I realized the intenseness of it, and I we then assisted, and I called other staff members in to support to get more medical assistance, to transport them to hospitals, to see that there's medication, get doctors to assist with prescriptions.
Yes, I hear what you're saying, Ms. Jacobus, and what you're telling us, you try to make things better.
Yes, ma'am.
But I'm asking you, what was your role in having people dying and suffering? What blame do you take for that?
I take responsibility because in view of my appointment as the manager to manage and assist the coordination of mental health NGOs, in view of that appointment is I have to see that patients are well cared for and protected. And so in view of that, my responsibility and accountability wasn't implemented properly.
So you say you weren't responsible enough in looking at the NGOs. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am, I wasn't responsible enough to...
And that caused suffering and dying?
Yes, to combat or to assist or avoiding that to happen.
Would you agree with me that you could have done more?
When the immenseness of this impact has on me, Council, I realized that I didn't do enough. I should have done more. And irrespective of all the processes that went on and organizations and SESAP and the court cases that didn't stop the process, I should have also consulted more broadly to find out what more can I do and where else can I go, and I didn't do that.
We will speak about that a little bit later. Can you just, as you sit there now, how could this whole tragedy have been avoided?
It could have been avoided by the initial process in terms of the institutionalization that was worked out, the strategic plan. If we could have kept to that and implement that project plan, the strategic plan.
Are you saying better planning?
Yes, Council.
Yes, I'm going to just leave that there for a moment. Are
we talking better planning or better implementation?
Just as better planning and implementation, both.
Thank you. I want you to please go to file 1. It's in front of you. I want you to open at page 58 of the file. Just as that's the recommendations of the Ombuds in chapter 18. And I'm going to refer to paragraph 6 thereof. Have you got that in front of you?
Yes,
the page has got an 18 with recommendations on it. You have that. And I'm going to refer you to paragraph 6 thereof.
Yes, Council.
Now, this comes from the Ombuds report. Have you seen it before?
Yes, Council.
Have you studied the Ombuds report?
Yes, Council.
I'm going to just refer to paragraph 6 thereof. It says that corrective disciplinary actions should take place against a variety of people, and your name is in there, isn't that so?
Yes, Council.
Then it says that the reason for this is for you and others failing to exercise your fiduciary duties and responsibilities.
Yes,
do you see that there?
Yes, Council.
What do you understand by that?
Our duties that we didn't do more and escalate to all, even beyond our levels.
What do you understand under fiduciary?
That we didn't speak out, we didn't act, we didn't comply in terms of safeguarding the patients enough beyond what we've done.
So do you understand fiduciary to mean that you had to look after the best interests of the patients and you didn't do that?
Yes.
Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes, Council.
Now, it continues. Well, maybe I should ask you, do you agree with that you didn't exercise your fiduciary duties and responsibilities?
Not well enough, Council, or not proper enough according to my assumption.
So what you're saying is that you didn't fail completely, but you failed partially. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, Council.
Now the next paragraph, or the next sentence says, you allowed fear to cloud and override your fiduciary responsibilities. In respect of you, how is that true?
Council, when the instructions was given, and I've tried to communicate my fears and my concerns and what the implications could be and would be for not instituting proper procedures, for instance, licensing, and the implications thereof. And my senior was very adamant, and afterwards I was fearful in terms of I didn't know how to handle it and how to get through to and not to adhere to what was saying.
Okay.
Because,
so you say she didn't listen. You said that yesterday as well.
Yes.
So your fear is not really a fear, it's more a frustration. Is that what you're saying?
Fear and frustration. There was at times where she would say I will be subjected to disciplinary implications if...
Who's she?
Dr. Manamela.
So you spoke out?
Yes, I've tried.
And you say you have a fear for a disciplinary hearing?
Yes,
is that what you're saying?
Yes, Council.
Is that the only fear that you had?
Fear also in terms of what would happen to the patients, and fear of some of the NGOs not really proper in place and things that's not proper. There was still some work that needed to be done. And equipment that needed to be given, like in terms of linen and that.
Ms. Jacobus, I'll get back to your feeling towards the patients. I'm trying to find out what was going on in your own head. What fear were there other than for a disciplinary hearing? What fear did you have for yourself?
For myself, that I wouldn't execute what needs to be done in such a short space of time.
So there were pressures against you, but that's not a fear.
Oh, okay.
Will I be correct to say that you didn't really have a fear?
I did have a fear because it was a conglomeration of feelings. I did have a fear.
You didn't fear Dr. Malamela because you spoke out against her all the time. Isn't that so? You weren't scared to speak out.
Yes, because I have to.
So there wasn't a fear towards Dr. Malamela. There was a frustration at most.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Now, the next line says that fiduciary responsibility is essential for good corporate governance. What do you understand by that sentence?
What I understand by that sentence is that in order to execute proper your duties in the workplace, you need to conduct in such a way that you always communicate at all levels and above levels, irrespective of what is at hand. Whether it's work or things that needs to be done beyond that.
Sorry for interrupting you, Mr. Jacobus. Is the simple answer not that you put your patients' lives and well-being before your own?
Yes, yes.
Isn't that, in any case, what a registered nurse would do?
Yes.
And you didn't do that?
I've tried to when in implementation, I was always thinking about the patient and families.
We will deal with that shortly, and I will try to prove to you that you didn't do that. But am I correct then to say that insofar as you are concerned, the Umbud was not correct to say that you were fearful of Dr. Malamela? You were frustrated, but you weren't fearful of her.
I don't know how to term that.
No, I can't hear you. Sorry,
I don't know how to term that, Council.
You weren't in fear of your life. You weren't in fear of your job.
Not really for my job, but in terms of the implementation of the project and the patients that needed to be placed in what was going on. I was really fearful of that. If one thinks what can happen and what is not really or not yet proper in place.
I will speak to you about that. Now, the Umbud recommended that there be a disciplinary hearing. Is that right?
Yes, Council.
And you were, in fact, you received a charge sheet.
Yes, Council.
Can you remember what the charges against you were?
The charge sheet was in the fiduciary responsibility that we didn't. perform
And
that.
eventually there was a disciplinary hearing.
Yes.
Is that
Council.
right?
Yes.
You were represented.
Yes, Council.
How did you get that representative?
We all are in the workplace. I belong to PSA union, and they were representing me.
Were the same was the same representative allocated to all the employees?
No, some belong to Aspersa and the others to, I think, the NOSA.
Did you ask for a representative, or did your employer arrange one for you?
The employer arranged and said we should have a representative.
Yes. And did you consult with this representative before the hearing?
Yes, Council.
On how many occasions?
One occasion, Council.
How long before the hearing?
The morning, the day before the hearing.
How long was the consultation?
I think if I can think back, it was about 4 hours.
I'm going to take you to the notice to attend the disciplinary hearing and the hearing itself. It's LO 15. It's in the exhibits file. Number 15. Do you have it in front of you?
Yes, sir.
It reads Gauteng Province at the top, and then it says in the disciplinary inquiry between the Department of Health and yourself. Do you see that?
Yes, Council.
Then there's the first page is the notice to attend the disciplinary hearing, and it's your name there.
Yes.
Do you see that?
Yes,
You've seen this document before.
Yes, Council.
Now, there are 2 charges against you. The one is a breach of Section 195 of the Constitution, in that you failed to display a high level of professional ethics, in that you failed to protect the rights and interests of the mental health care users by allowing their transfer when you knew or ought to have known that it was not in their interest, and you failed to provide public service in a manner that's impartial, fair, and that you allowed your fear to cloud your professional judgment. Now, we already established that you didn't really have a fear. Let us just make sure that, did you understand this charge? Was it explained to you what it meant?
Yes, Council.
And you failed to display a high level of ethics. What did you do wrong?
I was guilty by not performing my ethical duty as stipulated.
Yeah, we understand the big words, but I want the facts. What did you do wrong?
I've done wrong by allowing pressuring that I conducted the licenses without the proper procedure, by allowing the users to be placed. And that is one of the major things that I've allowed to happen.
You knew they shouldn't have been transferred, and you were instrumental in that. Okay, let us just turn the page to charge 2. Charge 2 is that you breached the Mental Health Care Act, in that you failed to take steps to ensure that the mental health care users were protected from exploitation, abuse, and degrading treatment. What did you understand under that?
In terms of the act, as a caring or as a professional person, I should always, at all times, ensure to look proper and in a respectful and a decent manner after mental health care users. And in all endeavors that happen, whether placing or treatment, that everything is there for immediate effect, to protect them.
Give us the facts. How did you not protect them against exploitation?
Exploitation, again, by doing the licenses, because that is one of the major things.
Give us facts. How did you exploit the mental health care users?
By conducting the licenses, bringing out the licenses for signing.
How were they exploited?
Because I feel, and as I've pondering a lot throughout since then, if the licenses, what I assume was, if the licenses wasn't there, if I didn't do it, though, then the patients wouldn't have been referred to these facilities.
If you didn't contravene the Act and committed fraud.
I've contravened the Act.
Yes. And abuse, how did you abuse the mental health users? Mental health care users? Sorry.
I should have been advocated more for them because I didn't do that and allowed the transfers to happen.
You should have made sure that they had food, water, medical treatment.
It's all
Isn't that so?
Yes.
So that is an abuse.
Yes.
And degrading treatment?
In the manner they were treated and transferred in huge numbers at the same time with not sufficient staffing.
And you were responsible for that?
Yes, I take responsibility because I was part of the project council.
And there should have been medical treatment, hygiene, isn't that so?
Yes, council.
And the second part of this charge is that you failed to report the potential and the actual exploitation, abuse and degradation.
In my view, council, I reported prior that the potential, I've raised my concerns. And after that, whatever happened, I kept in contact with Dr. Manamela and reported what was going on.
So, insofar as 2.2 is concerned, you say you did report. You didn't fail to report.
Yes,
so you're not guilty on that part.
I am guilty because maybe I should have done more. I could have done more and even escalated to other avenues. And I failed to do that.
Let us just move on. It says there that the hearing would have been on the 2nd of June 2017. Did you attend a hearing on the 2nd of June 2017?
Yes, council.
Let us turn 2 pages on, if you will do with me. It's the outcome of the disciplinary hearing. Was any evidence presented at this hearing?
Evidence in terms of?
Did somebody testify as you're doing today?
No,
there was no witness?
No, council.
And am I correct to assume that the charges were read to you?
Yes, council.
And that the presiding officer asked you what you are pleading? Is that so?
Yes, council.
And what did you say?
I said I plead guilty because I was part of the project and I felt responsible.
Just answer my question.
Guilty.
Did you only say guilty?
No, I said I'm feeling guilty and responsible and accountable for not performing my actions properly.
Did you plead guilty to the first charge and to the second charge? Or did you plead guilty in one go for both of them?
In one go for both of them.
Did anybody ask you any questions relating to your plea of guilty?
Not really, council, that I can remember.
Nobody asked you why you're guilty?
No, not in detail.
And then you were summarily found guilty? You were just found guilty on that?
Because, as I've said, that was my answer towards the guilt part.
Yes.
That was
just yes or no, man.
Yes, yes, council.
So there were no inquiry whatsoever against what you did wrong?
Inquiry, I don't understand inquiry part.
The
council.
presiding officer didn't ask you for details, facts, why you are guilty?
No, council, not in so much words.
Do you have children, ma'am?
Yes, council.
When a child tells you they're sorry for something, you don't allow them just to say sorry. You ask them, what did you do wrong? Isn't that so?
Yes,
that they must know.
Yes, council.
In the criminal courts, it works the same way. If there's a serious problem and somebody pleads guilty, you look for facts to see whether they're in fact guilty. You would probably not know that, but I put it to you.
Okay.
And in all disciplinary hearings where I have been, there's facts to substantiate. I find it strange that there were no facts to substantiate why you were guilty, yeah.
Council, the presiding officer had quite a detailed explanation to their charge, and yes, I can't remember all the words and all the details.
Yes, this is his judgment. He repeated the charge sheet, but there's nothing in this judgment pertaining to any facts. You see, the reason why I'm asking these things, it seems to me that all the people that the Umbud said should have disciplinary hearings, there was just this en masse hearings without any substance and a slap on the wrist. Do you agree with me? It seems that it was pre-arranged between the employer and yourselves what would happen.
No, I had no discussion or communication with my employer before.
So why did they arrange a legal representative for you? Why didn't you arrange that yourself?
No, the department didn't arrange the union member. They've, what the HR manager said, they will, if we want a representative, we must arrange it ourselves, and we can use our unions to represent us.
You said earlier
us.
You earlier said, ma'am, that the department arranged the legal rep for you.
I mean by advert or asking.
Explained that the union procured counsel.
Okay.
Yes. Just.
Now, the sanction was ultimately that you receive a final written warning.
Yes.
Is that so? What did you understand by a final written warning?
If any or similar or any other incidents occur, then the written warning will fall away and I will then be charged.
The sanction also says that you must get counselling. Are you aware of that?
Yes, Council.
Did you receive the counselling?
We had one session, Council, one group session.
A group session?
Yes, Council.
All of you together?
Yes, Council.
And what was the session about?
What happened in the session was the psychologist was he referred to and was getting more information what happened and how we feel, our feelings are, how do we cope, and what we're currently doing to cope within our work and on a daily basis.
When did you receive this counselling?
I can't remember the date now, Council. I think it was a few 2 months after the disciplinary letters that was given out.
Sorry,
2 or
Justice.
3 months.
No, you go ahead. I think
the counselling wasn't to tell you how you should do your duties.
Excuse me?
The counselling wasn't aimed at showing how you should do your duties.
No, Council.
It was just on how you're feeling at the moment.
And was a information sort of gathering from us, what happened, who did what, that type of thing. And as I've said, it was only one session.
Was there any benefit to that?
In my opinion, no, Council.
Well, how long did your hearing take? It's not a hearing. 10 minutes?
Now, I'm trying to think now, until 2 o'clock, until 12 o'clock from the morning.
I'm not talking about the consultation, the
Yes.
actual hearing before Advocate Shabalala.
I think it was it started at 8:30 until 1 o'clock.
You see, when
I think that time
counsel
period.
was taking you through the judgment, there's not even one word of evidence.
As I'm saying, Justice, it was the presiding officer and a departmental representative, one lawyer, and another person, and there was a lot of discussions and all that also between them.
No, but
going
from
on.
you, there's not even a word about what you did wrong.
When the presiding officer read, as I've said, read out what went wrong and all that, and it was then a declaration with the the union representative was also present within that. So there was a cross-quiz discussion.
Yes, you pleaded guilty, but you were not asked any of the things that Advocate Krause asked you this morning.
Not really, not in that much words, Counsel,
Yes,
Justice.
it's not recorded here.
Yeah.
But also, was any talk about deaths?
No, Justice.
Yes. Was any talk about what you've been asked this morning? The pain and trauma of the survivors?
Yes, Counsel.
No, in the hearing.
Not in the hearing, but in the discussion.
I'm not
There was
talking
a-
about the psychology session.
Oh,
At
no.
the hearing,
No,
he records
Justice.
here that you pleaded guilty
Yes.
and you were found guilty as pleaded. But you're not asked about in what way have you failed to do any of these charges.
There was a short discussion, but not, if I can recall back, not much in detail, but there was a discussion around all these things,
And
Justice.
it is the representative of your employer who suggested a warning. The record says Mr. Ngwenya, who appeared for the province, suggested that paragraph 9, can you see that? Page 7. So your employer recommended that you only be given a final written warning.
Yes, Justice.
You see, Dr. Kinoshi was here and said he was very unhappy with the outcome of these disciplinary hearings and that they might appeal against or review them. Have you heard anything about that?
No, Justice.
That's coming off very likely, isn't it? 143 people die, and you admit to the things you've admitted this morning from Advocate Krause's questions, and you get a final written warning, like you arrive late at work. What do you think? Was it an appropriate punishment? Was it surprisingly light?
Justice, in terms of that, I cannot say, but the personal and emotional impact, it's much, much worse than a final written warning. I'm still suffering under that and immense remorse because what happened.
Thank you. These hearings, Ms. Jacobus, was all about you, and it wasn't about the harm that you've caused. Don't you agree?
Yes, Counsel.
And all of you got the same sanction without any evidence. Isn't that so?
Yes, Counsel.
And the whole process seems to pay only lip service to the Ombuds's recommendation. Nobody took this serious. Do you agree?
I don't know whether I can answer. I don't know how to answer that, Counsel.
Let me put it a different way. From outside, it seems as if this was prearranged just to get a slap on the wrist and to be done with the Ombuds's recommendation. Would you agree that that could be the perception from outside?
I don't think so, because even prior to this thing, when we were dealing with what happened and with our director, it was discussed really in thorough and what we should do more or be apprehensive of future endeavors.
But that's not part of the disciplinary hearing, ma'am. That's part of ongoing departmental policy. I'm talking about this disciplinary hearing process. I want to put it to you that it was a wholly unsatisfactory implementation of the Ombuds's recommendation. You can't differ from that, can you?
Yes, Counsel.
And I also want to put it to you that the sanction was not in line with the seriousness of the wrongs that you yourself did. Do you agree?
I understand, Council.
Now, do you understand or do you agree?
I agree.
Because of what you know, Ms. Jacobus, and what you knew beforehand, I want to put it to you that you were not fearful, but you were rather not caring or advancing your own career. What do you say to that?
I disagree, Council.
Okay, maybe it was too many facts on one. You agree that you have knowledge?
Yes, Council.
And that you should have acted differently?
Yes, Council.
You agree that you weren't fearful of Dr. Malamela?
I don't know how one can say fearful, but I've tried my best, Council, to not agreeing or to implement and to also communicate what needs to be done proper. And
I think we can accept that you weren't fearful. I think we can accept that because you spoke your mind to her.
Can I respond, Council? I don't know. For me also, though that I speak my mind, I had to. Because even if you're fearful and you don't speak up, it may result also in wrong things. So I've tried to speak. I've tried to engage with others to also push that the procedure should be stopped. But
you said to us yesterday that you were uncomfortable.
I were?
That you were uncomfortable with this whole process.
Yes, from the beginning.
You said to us yesterday your uncomfortableness was about the licenses and the moving of the patients and the whole of the process.
Yes, Council.
Now that coupled with what you said this morning makes me wonder why you were part of this.
Council, from my side was because I'm employed by the department, and taking my knowledge back in being employed, that the employer says you should execute at all times all the instructions of the employer.
Ma'am, I'm going to argue at the end of all of this that your fingerprints were all over the plans to relocate and the relocation. Do you agree with that?
No, Council.
You tried to create the impression that you are only acting on instructions. Is that what you're trying to do?
No, Council.
So were you acting on your own?
Was I acting?
Were you acting on your own knowledge?
No, I don't. If you can explain my own knowledge.
Okay, let me try to give you an example. For instance, with the linen, and the person you said lost his house as a result of the linen. Dr. Malamela told us that you're the one that arranged this. I'm just putting it to you. You said no. Dr. Malamela told you to go and do this.
Yes, Council.
And in doing this, you didn't protect his best interest at all. You didn't protect the patients.
Can I explain, Council, please? When I received that and when I discussed with the person that was supposed to provide the linen, I went beyond that. I went and I looked at both sides. If the NGOs can't pay, well, the department, because I've cleared that with Dr. Manamela, and she says the NGOs will be responsible, and I sort of disagreed with that. I went to the finance section and says, because no proper procedures was put in place to acquire the linen, if the department doesn't pay, can we ask, or can we hold the NGOs responsible from their goods and services portion? And so we looked at that, and with the okay from the finance section, we then went ahead.
Ma'am, bottom line is, you didn't tell the supplier you're not going to be paid. You didn't care whether he was going to be paid. You worried about your own career.
No, Council. I've said to him, I will ensure, because he has asked me that, and he says if the NGOs cannot pay, I said to him, and I still hold to that, that I will pay him out of my own pocket.
Have you paid him?
Not yet.
And he's lost his house?
I was asked just to wait a bit because the department is looking into that.
And what authority do you have to negotiate on behalf of NGOs? How could you enter into a contract with him on behalf of NGOs?
It was entered into, and there was the NGO meeting where they were called together and also discussed with him before the finalization. And he also had an agreement, a signing agreement between him and the NGOs that they will pay.
Ma'am, if one look, for instance, at two parts of evidence, that you are more worried about appearances than caring for the patients. And the first that I want to put to you is the whole saga around Siabedinga's licensing. Now, in law, we work with a ring of truth to it.
Yes.
And what was testified here is that you came with a license and you placed it at the back of the door. And you said, no, if people check, they won't see the wrong name there. That just has a ring of truth to it. What do you say about that?
I still maintain, and I say I did not do it, and it wasn't during the visit. While we were standing there, because myself and Ms. Gordon were standing next to each other, it wasn't at the back of the door, it was against the wall, and my eye fell onto it. And I inquired and asked, who has put that there? And she says she doesn't know. Mm-hmm. So I also have no idea. So
she's just lying completely about you placing it behind the wall, and you saying nobody will see it.
Yes, I haven't done it, ma'am.
And there's also evidence that you told Dorothy Franks to separate men and female because there was going to be some sort of an inspection.
No, what happened with the the DDG has asked and that should be done.
So you didn't ask Dorothy Franks to just, for the time of the inspection, just separate men and women so that it doesn't look too bad?
I've done that in the beginning.
Yes.
Because it was like that, and then it was done.
So my question to you...
patients came, and because of space, the same thing occurred again. And I only observed that evening during that visit that there are again a few females in the male ward.
Ms. Jacobus, you know that men and women shouldn't be in the same ward. And if you ask them to be separated for appearance sake, you're not acting in the patient's best interest. Do you agree?
It's not just appearance because of all the dangers attached to it and the dignity of the patient, Counsel.
Yes, so you should have ensured that did not happen.
Counsel, as I'm explaining, the first time when I saw that while we were doing rounds and visiting the NGOs to support them, I observed that. And so I actually assist separating and rearranging the spaces. And then, remember, it's not just that one NGO. And then that evening, while we were walking around with all the seniors through all these NGOs, I observed again that there's a few. And then when I asked her, then she says there wasn't enough space on the other ward. These patients came afterwards, and she was asked to take the patients in. So I wasn't aware of that. So that is where the other also then came in.
So she's also lying to say that you said that must be changed for the inspection.
Yeah, no, not for the inspection, because I didn't say that prior to the inspection.
Why is it that everybody's lying about you?
Ma'am, I did not do it. I've done it before that. And I wasn't aware of the placement of the other patients, the few that came that was placed again in the ward.
Let me speak to you about Dorothy Franks. My learned friend for Section 27 referred you to a newspaper report.
Yes,
and you said you knew her because it's a small community.
Yes, ma'am. And their family, I know her family.
And you know her family?
Herself, yes.
Were you at school together?
Yes, there's only one Eerstrus High.
Yes, why didn't you tell my learned friend that yesterday? When she asked you whether you knew her from before, you said no.
I said no. I didn't say no. I said yes from the NGO because she was running this NGO in Eerstrus for 7 years.
Why didn't you say to her we went to school together?
We weren't in one class. I didn't really know her at school. But our whole family, we all attended school at one place. And I'm not sure, but I haven't really had. I had contact with her sister, was two subjects above me, so I had more contact with her sister, not contact, but knew her sister, and not Dorothy per se.
TMI, ma'am, TMI, too much information. What you are being asked is, why didn't you say you were together at school? Just deal with that.
Okay.
Time is
We
precious.
attended one
Just
school.
listen to the question and try and answer what counsel is. There are good reasons why you are asked these things.
Yes.
Just provide the answer, please.
We attended one school.
Yes. And you also attended the same church, the Emmanuel Congregational Church, according to the newspaper article.
No, I'm alone in Emmanuel Congregational Church.
Sorry?
I'm alone in Emmanuel Congregational Church. I've never seen her church. She was never in our church. And I'm there from small.
Have you visited her at home?
Not really, ma'am.
Not
As I've
really.
said,
What
her
does that
aunt-
mean?
I don't visit at home. I'm not really friends, but we've met at her aunt's place. Her aunt and my mother were friends. So when we, at times, were at, and this was way back when we were still schooling, we'll meet
So
there.
it would be fair to
But
say
very
that...
limited.
Sorry for interrupting you. It would be fair to say you know her a little bit better than the normal NGO employee or official.
Ma'am, I won't say I know a little bit better. I don't know Dorothy, like in her personality or her home circumstances. I don't know.
Yes, but you
her.
know her family. You should have some feeling for this woman, at least to protect her.
I have feelings for all the NGO managers to protect or in protection.
Okay,
of
we'll
all
get
of
to
them.
all of them, but I'm only speaking about Ms. Franks now. Surely with your feeling of feeling uncomfortable with what's happening, surely knowing her family, you wouldn't have allowed her to become part of this abortive process.
Ma'am, I didn't allow her to become part. It was an open invitation to all the different NGOs and community for the word, if they are interested in opening an extension. And that is how she became part of the project.
Surely you should have said to her and the others, be careful, this process can't work.
The four that was at Kalafong, I've said, because remember with the opening of an NGO, responsibility and equipment is their responsibility. So when I saw what was going on in their hands, I've written those letters.
Yes,
I said
you're not
going
answering the question now, ma'am. What I'm saying is you know this person's family. You know this process can't work. You should have warned them, saying this is not going to work. Don't start here.
I've warned the four people at the NGO at Kalafong, but not the family. I mean, I don't go to their
Now,
families.
the question
and
simply put, why didn't you warn Ms. Franks that this is bad territory? She shouldn't enter it.
Not warned, but I've alerted her of the circumstances, what can happen. And
Did
in
you
view,
alert her?
Yes, that she should take cognizance of
So
that.
the answer is yes, you did.
Yes, and not in that, in a really thorough way, but in...
Let us test that, ma'am. You knew she had no experience. Is that right?
Ma'am, according to my observation, when she was dealing with children at the FMA and she was looking 7 years, she had good reports, and all her reports was in good
You
standing.
already, yes, I'm just repeating what was said yesterday. You already said she didn't have any experience with adults. You
Yes,
knew that.
Yes, she didn't have experience.
You knew
with
she had no
adults.
qualifications, isn't
Yes,
that
there's
so?
no qualifications, ma'am.
You knew that she had no premises.
Yes, because the premises was
You
alluded
knew,
to Kalipong.
just yes or no,
Yes,
ma'am?
yes.
You knew she had no staff.
Yes.
Yet you go on the 23rd of June 2016 and you go introduce her, saying she's now taking over here.
By then she had staff because they were all during
Did
2
you
weeks
go and
prior to
introduce
that.
her? Let's start. Listen to the question. Did you go and introduce her that she would be good to run the NGO?
No, I didn't introduce her. I introduced her on the 23rd. She was already there. She was introduced to the Cullinan CEO that she will be on the premises.
And then you forced her to take extra patients a few days later after the 23rd. Knowing all this, did you really act in anybody's best interest?
Council, I was not responsible for the placement. I will become known of placements afterwards. After the 23rd placement, it was there that I saw it was adults, and that is why I was trying to clear that.
Ma'am, on the first placement on the 23rd of June 2016,
Yes.
you were
Yes.
there. You
Yes,
introduced Miss Franks there to everybody.
No, she was introduced long before that because
Well,
they
that's
had
not
to
the
prepare.
evidence, ma'am.
According to my knowledge and what happened, she
You were
was
there
on
on
the
the
premises.
23rd at Cullinan, were you?
Yes, I was on the premises when she received the patients, and that is where I've cleared
And you're
and
one of the
asked.
people who said she must take more patients, is that
No,
right?
no,
Who did
no
that?
justice, no.
You, the person that knows that she has a license, if I can put that quote unquote, for 150 children.
For Kalafong Heights, yes.
Yes, and here you put 70 adults with her. Is that looking after her or the patients?
Not looking after her nor the patients.
She said that after Charity Legotso died, Ms. Franks asked you to come and assist with the ID of patients. Remember that?
Yes, yes.
And she said
Council.
you never came.
I couldn't because I was elsewhere busy, and there were people that was dealing with it, so I referred and I've put in connection with the people to assist.
You said you'll sort it out, and you never sorted this out. Is that looking after her or the patients?
No, Council.
Now, what is that answer, sorry?
Excuse me, Justice.
What is the answer to Council's question?
Because I've put the person in charge to assist her, and the people did do that. It was Edmund and the district people did assist her. I couldn't do it myself. And then, sorry, Council, and then also what Dr. Manamela said, and when I discussed with Dr. Manamela, the Cullinan Rehab social worker was put in place also by the DDG to assist the two NGOs on the premises.
Ma'am, before the placement, you said to Ms. Franks that she could go and pick and choose her patients at Life Esidimeni.
Not pick and choose. What normally happens in the past, Life Esidimeni will assess and identify the patients. And then just to make contact and to see whether that was a prerequisite from Life to meet the managers first, to speak to them to see if it will be adequate for them to give the patients over to them. So that process where we've still continued with it.
Ms. Franks had the idea that she could go and physically decide which patients she wanted.
No, ma'am, it's not to decide because it was already being...
In any case, there was no proper handover of her patients. And you knew that, didn't you?
Council, Mrs. Franks on the 23rd didn't receive patients from Life Esidimeni. It was from Cullinan.
Yes, but there were no handover whatsoever.
I was there on the premises that evening when the patients arrived. When she found us, we were at Bopalong Center, so we said we'll come. So we got there around about 6:20. When the patients eventually arrived, I wasn't even aware because I thought it would be children that will be transferred because what she said, the CO said the patients will come after 6, between 6 and 7:30 when they're done. So I just assumed it would be children. When we got there and when the patients, there were no patients. The type of patients, the adults. The children the patients were transferred from Cullinan Center, not from Life.
Yes. And there were no children transferred
no, there
in
were
any
no
case.
Children,
so
no.
I'm not understanding what you're saying. But let me just end this part of Ms. Franks. You knew her family. You knew her from before. And yet, can put it in no other way, you threw her under the bus.
Council, for me, I cannot make distinctions because I need to treat all equally.
You treated them all the same, ma'am. You threw all of them under the bus, knowing what would happen. Isn't that so?
Council, it was an invitation for them who are interested to open up NGOs. And as I've said, the proper process wasn't followed, but Mrs. Franks did have prior knowledge what it entails to run a center.
But to take patients who ultimately ended up with Ms. Franks and place them under her, an accounting clerk, with no staff? You've answered all these questions already. Was it proper care to the patients?
Just as she had staff.
Forget about the NGOs. Let's talk about patients. You're a professional nurse. You've got a B.Care. You've got a master's degree. You go and take somebody you know from a family you know, and you place patients under her care, and those patients die. Do you think you're blameless in all that?
No, Council.
What is your response? We invited, it was an open invitation. You are in charge, and you had to follow the law. No, you don't. You take somebody you know and place patients under her when she had only looked after children in the past, and some of these patients died, and others survived but suffered. And what do you say about that?
Council, she wasn't supposed to have adults. As the license are reading, she was supposed to receive children. It was only with that evening when the patients came that I observed it was adults.
But you were the team. You were the people in charge of the project. She was a recipient, and you were the person who was in charge.
In terms of placement...
What about the patients? Why do you expose these patients this way? And your job is to look after the patients. Is it not so? You've said it many times. So why do you do this?
Justice, I wasn't aware that I wasn't even aware that it has been arranged that Cullinan would place the patients. I only discovered that evening.
Did you do it so that Mrs. Franks can earn over R1 million?
No, Justice.
Have you since found out how much she earned? She told us already how much she earned. Have you found out?
No, Justice.
Why don't you know this?
Justice, because of all the haste of all the NGOs, I haven't, because there's finance people.
Forget about the haste. She's there. She's from your neck of the woods. You placed her there, and you bring patients there, and she earns a lot of money. Have you heard how much it was?
No, Justice, I didn't inquire from her or from the finance section. Because
why didn't you?
It's a district competency, and the district follows up and deal with the finances.
And I asked you a question yesterday about the cards of deceased mental health care users. Did you tell her she may draw the money?
No, Justice.
On the back of mental health care users?
No, Justice.
Where did she get the card from?
Normally when 24-hour centers open, there is a understanding between health and CESA that the patients, the families for 24 hours won't continue during, it will cease, and the money will go over to NGOs to support the NGOs.
Did she tell you that she withdrew money of deceased mental health care users?
No, Justice.
Why not?
Because
you were her immediate superior, and you told Advocate Hassim yesterday, Sabadinga and the other place were under your charge.
It was
Why
up
don't you
to
know this?
Justice. I was there up to I think the 29th, and then I was removed from the Cullinan area. I did not go or have any contact. Somebody else was then placed there. Dr. Lungwani was placed there to look after them. I wasn't any more responsible at that site anymore.
And going back to the question that Council asked you about men and women, and you requiring them to be separated, it's just beyond me, Mr. Jacobus. Somebody like you, trained as you are, with a master's degree in psychiatry, you go and sit and look at the devastation in treatment of patients, and you do nothing about that.
Can I answer, Justice?
Yes, you must.
I did do something. Prior to that, we did separate, and we've done that. And then when we were visiting that evening, when the seniors visited and we came there, there was a mixture again in the one ward. And when she was inquired by the senior managers what is happening and why this is so, then she answered that she received more patients a few days apparently before that. And she didn't have enough space to put
Did you
her.
ever, even once, ask consent from these patients or from their family members to take them to Cullinan and to move them around the way you people did? Did you just once give a thought to these patients?
Council, there was, as I've said, we were being divided into different groups, and there was the two officials.
You were deputy director, did you ever give a thought to that?
I was dealing with a few patients with a few family members, not many. If I can call it, about 6 family members that I directly dealt with, who contacted me and that whom I met. But I couldn't, no, I didn't with all the members.
Had you done your job, would these people who were at, let's start for a moment, at Sabadinga, would they have died? If you had done your job, made sure that it's a proper NGO, it's properly licensed, and it is properly resourced, and the patients there are being medicated the proper way. All these questions have been asked to you already.
Yes,
I'm moving to a conclusion. If those things had happened and you had done the job for which you are paid every month, would these patients have died? Or those who have survived have suffered?
No, Justice.
Why did you allow it to happen?
Justice, I wasn't even aware of patients at Sabadinga until we've been sent there, and apparently patients have been there for 2 months already.
You know, on the plan, your name appears on every single action that is listed. Now the plan you were shown yesterday?
Yes, Justice.
You were a core part of that team, were you not?
Justice, as I've said, the plan wasn't discussed with us. I've never went through the plan, so no, I'm not ducking, Justice.
You were part of just about every section of implementation. If I show you that, I can show it to you again.
Yes, I've
Remember,
seen it, Justice. Yes.
And your name is there all the way.
I've seen, Justice.
And when council says your fingerprints are all over there, you deny it.
Oh, I thought she meant my signature. I thought, Council. But Justice, also the plan and all the implementation wasn't done as planned and the way it was supposed to be. So all documentation wasn't utilized in terms of the implementation.
And why did you allow that? Unlawful things happened, you act fraudulently. Somebody has a license for children, you allow adults to go there, and you don't scream and say, she doesn't have a license for adults. You play along, you divide them, you push beds around.
Justice, when I discussed that with Dr. Manamela, the overcrowd and all that, she has assured me that it will continue and we will sort it out after the project ends.
Thank you, Justice. Mr. Jacobus, I'm very nearly finished, but I just need to finish this point still.
You don't have to finish, Council.
I don't have to, I must.
No, I don't say you don't have to. I hope I didn't give a signal that you are. No. The message which appears so plain, and yet we're not hearing very well-educated and senior people dealing with it.
Yes.
And acknowledging just how the devastation they have caused. And then they get off with a what? A written warning. Anyway.
Thank you, Justice. What I'm busy with is the showing that you had knowledge of the devastation that's going to come. Yes. And you had knowledge of what should happen. And yet you promoted the wrongness of what was going on. For instance, we have evidence that you said to the families, everything will be okay, will be all right. I've been working with NGOs forever. Remember saying that to the families?
I can't remember, Council.
Well, we have evidence to that. So you gave assurances to families, knowing full well that this can't work. Do you agree?
Council, in my...
Just yes or no, firstly, before.
I can't remember having that thing with... I said the broader family, but the smaller group, yes, I've made that promise that I
You made promises,
yes.
Knowing that those promises can't be delivered on. Isn't that so?
Council, I didn't anticipate that the project would work out the way it did.
Yes, we've already have your assurances that you knew that people could die, that people will suffer. And yet, to advance your career, you acted against the patient's best interest, against the family's best interest. Do you agree?
Yes, Council.
Similarly, with Sia Bedinga, when they asked you for a real license, you said, I will sort this out. It was never sorted out. Do you agree?
No, Council. I never made that communication with Sia Bedinga.
Okay.
Never had.
We also have evidence, ma'am, when Ms. Ethel Ngube, that you said to her, she's asking too much questions, too many questions, and you can't work with somebody asking that many questions.
I can't recall.
You can't recall that. It
you
seems
can
to me
maybe-
there's a lot
No,
that you
ma'am.
can't recall, Ms. Jacobus.
Council, if you can maybe just explain that, because I've also assisted and worked with Mrs. Nube. And as I've said, we've been placed in different areas. In terms of supporting her, I was only after this, the patients was transferred from our areas to Kalafong.
Why would you say something like that to a concerned NGO owner? Why would you say you're asking too much questions?
I've never said that to a member.
No, you said you can't
I don't know.
remember.
I can't remember, but I can't remember me saying that to any person or any NGO manager.
You see, that fits the profile of what we've seen here. Somebody that worries more about doing unlawful things than the patients and the people. What do you say to that?
I don't. If you say so, Council, then it is like that.
Why do you think NGOs offered to take patients? What was in it for them?
According to my experience and my observation throughout working with NGOs, there's nothing in for NGOs. The subsidy that we provide doesn't cover even their full expenses, Justice.
So why would they place themselves in that situation?
A lot of NGOs that wants, managers that wants to open up places come forth on their own, and a lot of them says it starts off with some family members or need in the community, and they were running that. And since I took over from NGOs that was opened, that was
Why do
it happened.
NGOs, with evidence of that here, went on to take so many patients on premises which were limited in space?
Justice, with the placement of the beds, certain numbers were given through. And when I discussed with the placement
I'm
team...
not talking about you, and I'm talking about NGOs. Why was there overcrowding? Did NGOs tend to take so many patients?
It's not the NGOs, but they were given the patients by the placement team.
Or they had no choice in it. They were
Yes.
given the numbers.
Yes.
Why
Justice.
was it so?
Just as I've said afterwards, after the placement, when we went around and see how many to do our support visits, then we discovered more patients has been placed that was initially communicated through.
And I say, why did the placement teams overcrowd NGOs?
They said it was an instruction, according to them, from Dr. Manamela.
So Dr. Manamela instructed them to overcrowd NGOs.
I won't say overcrowd. What they said was Dr. Manamela will contact them and says that NGO X placed so many patients, that NGO S placed so many patients. So they were working on instruction from Dr. Manamela. That is what the answer given to me.
So you're telling us that there was no commercial motive on the part of the NGOs?
No, not that I can think of, Justice, and I can really assure when one goes through the NGO financial expenditure reports, even long-standing ones, to look after mentally ill patients in a proper way, they also have to contribute.
Ms. Franks told us
to
that she made a
finances.
profit.
I don't know.
You're shaking your head. You've got to say something.
No, I said I don't know that, Justice. because remember, I didn't see Ms.
Ms. Dube
Franks.
told us once the money came through, she made a profit.
According to my understanding, if one takes all the different categories of payment, and at times the money will be paid out not in the, according to the SLA, there are certain time frames that the money was supposed to be paid. And then they don't receive the money and they will get extra. So, but that is also another section that really follows that in the district, and they will inform us.
Did you get any financial benefit out of this disastrous transfer of patients?
No, Justice.
And what was this linen thing about?
When these
Which NGOs received linen?
All the NGOs, Justice. I communicated because, remember, I was responsible for the beds. And some NGOs didn't have enough linen. So I went to different hospitals, private, public, 2 hotels assisted us,
But
medical.
why linen? They didn't have food. They did not have medication. They did not have proper ablution facilities. They did not have proper clothing. They had just about nothing. And then there's this big order of linen. Why?
That was prior to the placement, Justice, and still getting things prepared, the linen and bedding and equipment, thermometers, your glucometers, and all that wasn't in place. So I've tried with all the hospitals' facilities to get that for us. And
But what
when
linen got to do with it when there are such big needs?
remember the big needs, Justice, derived after the placement that we've noticed about the food, because prior to that there wasn't any mention of food. So I was seeing that all the equipment and necessary medical equipment are in place.
And lastly, for me, at any rate, just to remind you about something that worries me quite often. You are a nurse, aren't you?
Yes, Justice.
And you still kept your nursing registration, did you?
Yes, Justice.
Fundamental responsibilities of nurses. Can you remember them?
Yes, Justice.
Can you just repeat them to me?
I can't out of hand, Justice. Honestly, I can't think back.
Pardon?
I think I know. I can't repeat them but like that. If you can read it out to me, please, Justice.
To promote health.
Yes.
You agree?
Yes, Justice.
To prevent illness.
Yes.
To restore health.
Yes, Justice.
To alleviate suffering.
Yes.
And that is in the Nightingale Pledge, isn't it?
Yes, Justice. Part of it.
Do you still remember that?
Yes, Justice.
And why did you do it here?
Justice, in terms of executing within the project, I've tried to accomplish all that in all the ways and spheres I could. If that is why I said I even went beyond just, it was when the application for the linen was made. I think that was in March, April. But as the time drew nearer, Dr. Manamela said, it's taking so long, I must also look at other areas for the linen. So I've done that. And then in June, July, Mr. Maris came back and says that the linen orders are ready, and you couldn't then stop that process, so it was given out to all these NGOs.
I'm not talking about linen.
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood.
I'm talking about nursing ethics.
Oh, nursing ethics. Mm.
You see, your evidence, I haven't heard you talk about patients, their needs, their health, their care, prevention of suffering. I don't hear that. And the question is inevitable, did you care? Or was it just you and your career? And that's what counsel was trying to get to you now.
No, Justice. I didn't even think about my career.
Thank you. Ms. Jacobus, I want to put it to you, you also didn't think about the patients. And the reason I say this is Life Esidimeni asked you for a list of the NGOs. We spoke about that yesterday.
Yes, Council.
And you said you didn't know about that.
No, I said I knew Dr. Manamela. He said to Dr. Makachwa that she will send the list.
But was
I
there
did not
ever a
send.
list? Was there ever a
Dr.
list?
Manamela.
No,
and
forget
a
about
person-
Dr. Malamela. I'm
They
asking
were-
you.
They were constructing
Was
a list
there
in
a
the
list?
office. Not a complete list, a partial list, as it was.
Was
for
there a
finances.
list?
Yes, Council.
There was a
Not-
list.
Yes,
Now,
but not complete.
Ma'am, a list is a list. There's either a list or there's not a list.
Okay, then it wasn't ready.
There wasn't a list. Now, the family members asked you for this list. Remember that?
Yes, Council.
And you never gave them a list.
Mr. Tubani has sent the list to the
Just answer my
chairperson.
question. Did you give them a list?
No, not me, Council.
If you were worried about the patients, you would have given them a list and say, go there, go and look, things are not ready. So you didn't care about the patients, don't you agree?
I cared about the patients, Council.
Why did you not give the list to the families?
Mr. Tubani was in charge of that process. He provided the list and he arranged the NGO visits with the family committee.
You see, Miss Dumi Masadu, do you know who she
Masondo.
is?
Yes.
She
Council.
said she was asking for the list from you personally, and you didn't provide a list to her.
I provided the list only when it was complete to
Yeah, she said
the review board.
you had several reasons for not providing the list. Sometimes it was you still editing, sometimes you were still busy, sometimes you said there were new NGOs, sometimes you said NGOs were not functioning.
Yes, because of
You
all
said
the
all of
changes.
those things.
Yes, yes,
So
I did.
if you
And I
were
explained
worried
to her.
about the patient's well-being and not about your career, why didn't you give this list to her and say, look out for these NGOs?
What I've done, Council, I gave her a list that was sort of edited, the old list, and I told her, because what I mean, there's still NGOs that's not ready, and the NGOs are closing. The minute it's finalized, they will get the final list, and they did receive that.
Did you tell her, watch out, this is a wrong plan, it's not going to work?
Yes, we've discussed it in a meeting. She also attended our meetings, and she raised the concerns with us.
And you kept up the facade. Good plan, it's going to work out, people are not going to suffer.
No.
Yeah, you didn't. You didn't care about the patients, ma'am. Can I just ask you, now after the fact, if you say you care about patients and care about the well-being, what have you done to make us better after your disciplinary hearing?
After the disciplinary hearing, all these centres were closed, Council.
But that was not your doing. That was the Ombuds doing, wasn't
Yes,
it?
yes.
I want to ask, what did you do to make this better, the suffering that you've caused?
I looked even what we took all into consideration, what happened during the project, and we went back to all existing NGOs, and we visited and see and strengthened according to what the Ombudsman said. The report was to see if we did wrong, how the current status is, etc.
What did you do about the missing 59 patients?
There was people that was following those up, Council.
What did you do about the missing?
Indeed, just coming out of the Esidimeni life, Esidimeni arbitration hearings that are currently taking place. Currently, Deputy Director for Mental Health, Hannah Jacobus, is still taking the stand. Huge spotlight, huge critique with regards to what exactly happened. We will be crossing live to the Esidimeni hearings in just a bit. For now, though, let's take a short break here on Newsroom.
We take an in-depth look of all your stories of the day across the world. Stay tuned to Primetime News every day from 18 hours.
Very good morning to you. Welcome to Newsroom. We're coming to you live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg. I'm Shante Yankees. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. It's just gone 11 o'clock. Today, our question of the day on Newsroom is, what do you make of the Brenda Fassie movie controversy? Of course, we are going to be having Chico Twala in studio to touch a bit more on that. Let's have a look at what some of the comments are coming through on at SABC Newsroom. Well, Thomas says that I'm yet to meet an honest, successful businessman. As for Brenda, Chico took her from the streets when no one wanted to be associated with her and resuscitated her career. He wasn't just milking her. In contrast, it isn't fair. It can be contested in court. Mixed views coming in this morning. This one coming from Ikona saying, the memory of Mabri mustn't be distorted by Chico and Bongani. Whatever challenges they are faced with, this should not deprive us. Of course, keep those tweets coming through on at SABC Newsroom. We will be speaking to Chico Twala in studio for more on that. We've also been running a poll this morning. Our poll is, do you agree with President Jacob Zuma's decision to appeal the High Court ruling that he is too conflicted to appoint the National Director of Public Prosecutions? With over 600 votes coming in, 25% of you are saying yes, 75% of you are saying no. Let's have a look at the views behind those numbers. A big no coming in from Alphys. Is either got the wrong advisor or he doesn't listen to his advisor. Clearly, he is not concerned about how much he lost on court cases. Another one coming in here from Yuseka. Nope, it's a big no from me. Plain and simple from Yuseka saying no. Continue to send us your comments. Let's also have a look at our sporting question for today. And we're asking you, what are you looking forward to in your sports this weekend? We have had a couple of tweets also coming through. This one coming in from Lechasa saying, Ajax in Cape Town City is a difficult game, but I do believe that Ajax will win 2-0 to Cape Town City. Tabo says, I'm waiting to see Cape Town City playing the draw with Ajax Cape Town. My prediction is a 0-0 between Ajax and the Cape Town City tomorrow. And our last tweet on the sports is from Atini, the English Premier League as well as the PSL. Well, it's definitely going to be a huge sporting weekend, of course, when Kendall is back on Monday. He's going to be taking us through all of our sporting highlights for the weekend. All your news and updates coming up in just a bit. For now, though, let's have a look at your headlines. Well, tributes have been pouring in for former Botswana Homeland Leader and UCDP President Lucas Manyane Manghope. President Jacob Zuma has filed papers to appeal the Pretoria High Court ruling that he's too conflicted to appoint the National Director of Public Prosecutions. Deputy Director for Mental Health in Services in Gauteng, Hannah Jacobus, has accused her former boss, Dr. Makabo Manamela, of lying under oath. Let's have a look at your top story at 11 o'clock. Well, tributes have been pouring in for former Botswana Homeland Leader and UCDP President Lucas Manyane Manghope. He died at his home in Motswedi village yesterday at the age of 94. UDM leader Bantu Holomisa says Manghope should be remembered as someone who developed the area in which he governed. Holomisa has sent condolences to the family. Manghope governed the homeland for almost 2 decades until 1994, when he became reincorporated into South Africa.
As early as 1992, when the South African talks over a new dispensation resumed, Manghope was not willing to give up his sovereignty. In the process, losing out on the opportunity to participate in the first South African democratic elections. A recipe for instability for a Bantustan that for many years enjoyed relative peace, looting of property, arrests of those seen to be fueling trouble, invasion of the capital city, Mabatu, by the AWB, and regrettable killings.
They didn't take over control, they looted control. There was a lot of criminal looting in Mabatu, and the South African government looted political power.
General Phuthego Seleke, one of Mangope's trustees, explained that Mangope believed he had enough friends to support him.
He warned the defense force. He said to them on that day, "Look, gentlemen, if you feel you cannot toe the line with me, give me that which is mine and leave the defense force."
Even his friend, the then South African Foreign Minister, Pik Botha, drew blank in his attempt to persuade Mangope to give up power.
It was my duty to put it to President Mangope in a friendly, courteous but firm way that, look, Mr. President, it's over.
Mangope, a former ANC Youth League member in his early years, missed out in the first democratic elections. The 1999 and 2000 elections breathed fresh air to the United Christian Democratic Party and saw it making a dramatic comeback. Mangope's return to South African politics took him only as far as becoming the leader of the official opposition party in the Northwest. Silwane Khachau, SABC News, Mahikeng in the Northwest.
Well, President Jacob Zuma has filed papers to appeal the Pretoria High Court ruling that he's too conflicted to appoint the National Director of Public Prosecutions. The court ruled that the president should recuse himself and that Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa should be the one to make the appointment. Public Prosecutions to vacate his position as his appointment was declared invalid. The NPA is appealing this decision. The judgment was handed down early last month by a full bench of the court, read out by Judge President Danson Mlambo. The court had also ordered that the president pay legal costs.
For now,
Well, speaking earlier on Morning Live, political analyst Levi Ndo gave reasons as to why President Jacob Zuma has lodged an appeal.
I think President Zuma is trying to, at his best, to buy time in order to delay the appointment of the Director of Public Prosecutions so that this matter can actually be resolved at a very, very late stage. But also at the same time, you know, President Zuma has always been in the courts and he seemed to be very much comfortable in taking matters to court. But lastly, and I think which is very, very important for me, is that the people that are surrounding President Zuma, especially his confidence, don't seem to be providing the best of advices. Because if you have this kind of a situation where President Zuma is filing papers to appeal, for me, he should have discussed this with certain individuals that are very close to him, whom I think would have advised him otherwise. But unfortunately, I think President Zuma is not getting the best of advices.
Well, longtime music producer Chico Twala says he can't be excluded from the making of a movie about the life of late pop icon Brenda Fassie. The producer, who worked with Fassie for years, has come out strongly against the production of the biopic by a United Kingdom-based film house that is working with Brenda's son Bongani. For more on the story, we are now joined in studio by Mr. Chico Twala. Very good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning.
Firstly, what are your main reasons for you being against the production of the film?
Well, I was approached by Bongani some 5 years back. And at that time, we were not talking, me and Bongani, because of the court case he had against me, EMI, Sambro, and Universal regarding his mom's royalties. So he took the matter to court. So obviously, I was not allowed to talk to him at the time. But after the court case, which didn't go in his favor, which is still in arbitration, he called me to apologize. That time we never even spoke about the rights or anything. He had problems, financial problems and all that, complaining about the executor that they chowed his money because there was about 8 million rand in the account at the time when I left. When we raised about 8 million after Brenda's death, and there was about that 8 million was gone. So he came to me to complain that he wants to remove the executor and appoint a new executor, of which I helped him, to the point where a new executor was appointed, Mr. Thokozani Mthembu. And Bongani suggested that, maybe we can do a movie about his mother and all that, So I then approached Zinge Production. And I said, okay, let's do it. The executor gave us the rights, Bongani gave us the rights.
Okay.
Then from there, we hired the service of Professor Zeik Simda to do the research to write the script. For almost 2 years, he's been working on that. And then a gentleman he worked with Malcolm X. We actually hired top people to work on the research and all that. Last year, Bongani called me. I think it was in February. He was having some problems. I don't know where, and then I assisted him with whatever. I think he was checked out of the house. I raised about 230,000 rand, and I gave it to him. The boy has a problem, and he needs help. I don't want South Africans to start attacking me for not. I have proof. I have everything what I've done for him. So we quarreled. After I said, Bongani, you are too extravagant. You need help. You cannot chow money like that. He's always not happy when you advise him, He got upset. Now in December, I got a letter from his manager, Vaughan, that they are terminating the agreement for what's his name. I said, look, we have an agreement. If you terminate, then let the courts decide who has the rights. Now they announced in January. Look, okay, sorry.
So essentially, who has the production rights to Brenda Fassie, anything to do with her estate or her music, or in terms of doing a film? Who has those rights?
We, Zinge and Leachona. Leachona is my company.
Okay.
Zinge, it's a company in Randburg. We have the rights. We were given the rights by Bongani Fassie and the estate.
Okay.
We have the rights.
So essentially now what's happening, is this now due to the personal problems that you
It's personal problems, to be honest with you. It's not about that. It's definitely personal problem. I mean, I don't think I can be excluded on Brenda's life. I wrote about 75% of Brenda's hits. My songs are the one that broke Brenda internationally. Vulindlela. I mean, how are you going to make Brenda's movie without the likes of me, the likes of Cindy, the Brenda's girlfriend? So many people are not contacted. No research is made on this movie. They just hire a company that has no experience.
Is that now the UK-based
company?
The
UK-based company. I mean, those guys, this movie is not going to be what South Africans expect.
Are you going to, in any ways, try intervene and try be a part of the movie and the making of the movie? What is your liaison been with that company?
I actually spoke to Bongani and Vaughan. In fact, Vaughan.
Yeah.
That Vaughan, let's work together. I don't have but that company, I have a problem with.
Why do you have a
Because
problem
they
with
don't
the
have the
company?
experience. Brenda's legacy, definitely, with that company. We need a reputable company, a company that has been doing movies. They've been in the industry for 2 years.
Preferably a South African company?
No, even if it's international or maybe a joint venture. We cannot go and shoot Brenda's film with 2 million, 3 million budget. I would have shot it, to be honest with you. I would have shot it. They just gave Bongani a little bit of money with Vaughan. I know that. And then now, they're not going to spend more than 3 million, 4 million to shoot that film, trust me.
So now, in terms of actually producing the movie, how is this going to happen? You did mention that you had an agreement to do this movie with Bongani.
Yes.
And you received a letter from, I suppose, him and his lawyers stating that they want to bring that agreement to an end. How are you going to take this further?
Well, I said to them, let's work together and try to find a solution on the matter. It's not about money. some people say it's about greed. Some people even insult me that I child Brenda's money. Look, I don't care about those people who said I don't have time for people who actually just criticize me with no proof, you know. I wanted to work with Bongani to make sure that we come with a film that will make South Africa proud. We know the story. There's a lot of people who've worked with Brenda, that lived with Brenda. They are not consulted. Bongani cannot tell Brenda's story. Bongani was too young. He was too young from 1982. Bongani was not even born when his mother started the car. There are people that worked with Brenda. People like us, Blondie Market, there's so many people. I mean, those people need to be consulted. You need to do research. You don't just wake up in the morning and say, give somebody the rights, go and shoot the film. Especially my music, I will never allow me. People can criticize me. I will never allow my music to actually be used on that.
So let's now bring that in. If the movie does go ahead, then none of the music that you've produced, you're not allowing it to be included in the film.
Correct.
Right. But it seems there's a common factor here between yourself and Bongani, regardless of your issues, and that you both loved Brenda, and that you'd want her to be remembered in the way that...
Not only Brenda, I also love Bongani. You know, to be honest with you, Bongani all the time when he's got problems, he comes to me. Even if it takes me to court, I get angry, you know. But look,
you love him like a son.
Listen, if I can show you the WhatsApp messages that he sends me when he's in trouble and I help him, you'll be shocked. What the public are hearing, it's not the truth.
What is the truth?
The truth is that the boy needs help. He needs help. Whatever he says other things, he needs help. He's not, the people that are assisting him now with what's him, they're taking advantage of him.
You obviously care about him. Is there any sort of way that the two of you can come to an understanding, you know, resolve your issues and work together in creating something memorable, not only for South Africans, but for the world to see the life of Brenda Fassie?
That is my wish. That's why in the agreement that we have, Bongani owns 28%, 10% Fassie Records, 18% the estate, and Zinge and myself who were funding it. And we said to him, don't contribute any money. We'll make sure that we bring the money. So we were working collectively. It's just that someone came and gave Bongani what they gave him, and he accepted. They said, and then he made an announcement on his own.
Now, Chico, in working with Brenda and the beautiful music that has come from this woman, what would you like to see being taken out if this movie eventually does go ahead?
I would like the movie to be successful, number one. I would like the movie to tell the story as it is. There's a lot of things that, I mean, we know about Brenda Fassie. And also, this is the last time that Bongani's got 2 children, that he can have something. Because, you know, he's no longer earning royalties of his mother like it used to be before. This movie should be something that Bongani must benefit from. I don't even care. I can even give, all to prove that it's not about money. I can give all my share to Brenda's grandchildren to prove that it's not about money. People think it's about money. I don't care about money. I've got businesses. I make enough money from the day of Brenda. You know, so people always think there's a problem here. We need to help Bongani. I help Brenda. And I was helping. It's not about money or anything. People are just jumping the gun. There's nothing like that. I want to help Bongani. And if need be, if does not want to work with me, unfortunately, we'll just have to sort this matter in court.
No, for the sake of many South Africans and fans that love Brenda, we really do hope that you can come to some sort of agreement for the work of art and the legacy of Brenda Fassie. Thank you very much for joining us in studio. Of course, that was music producer Chico Twala with regards to the controversy around the biopic of Brenda Fassie that is set to take place from a United Kingdom-based film house. Of course, Chico Twala is saying that he's not happy with the agreement, and they do not sort out their issues, then none of his music will be allowed to feature in that film. Well, Deputy Director for Mental Health Services in Gauteng, Hannah Jacobus, has accused her former boss, Dr. Makabo Manamela, of lying under oath. Of course, we have been covering the arbitration hearings all throughout the morning. It's been a very, very gruesome morning for Ms. Jacobus. Let's cross live.
Were you part of the selection team to select the NGOs?
There was no selection team at that because in normal circumstances it was supposed to happen, but it didn't happen in that year.
But did you make recommendations as to which NGOs should be selected?
No, Council.
So who made the selection?
The NGOs were just taken. Nobody made selections. There was no meeting procedures. Remember, the NGOs applied. The places
But you
were
just said
visited.
there was no application, formal application.
No, they apply in sort of verbally. There wasn't a formal application.
Okay.
They submit their request to us, those that wants to that have their own facilities and those that wants to have the NGOs at hospital premises.
Okay. So
I wonder how they applied orally, Council. To whom?
That was where I was going,
Oh,
Justice.
okay.
The application per se, was it a meeting sitting there, people putting up their hands and say, well, I'll take 20, or I'll take 50. How did it work, ma'am?
No. Within that, after they've made known their request to the district, we went out on district visit to visit these places. And as I've said, because of the normal procedure that didn't take place, I've asked the engineers to accompany the different districts. And because the normal team didn't do any inspections, so the engineers then measure and also assist looking at these places and measure the capacity, how many beds each place could take.
All right.
And based on that, the number of beds was assigned to a particular facility.
I also put it to Dr. Manamela that it wasn't really a situation of the NGOs applying.
Yeah.
It was more a situation of the department saying, well, this NGO can take 150, that NGO can take 50. The department made the calls, not the NGOs, in the initial situation.
Yes, because it was according to the bed capacity, yes.
And this readiness assessment reports of yours, which we haven't seen, there's no readiness assessment report.
No.
Are there any readiness assessment reports?
No, it wasn't done.
So there was no
Council.
formal
Audits done. No,
no
Council.
formal audits done. You've testified that, but you said you testified also that you drew up the licenses based on the audit letters.
No, based on the budget letter.
And you also said that they are based on readiness reports.
No, Council, I didn't say readiness reports. Remember, there were no reports. It was only a budget letter. The readiness reports was done afterwards.
After the allocation, after the transfer.
Yeah,
after the transfer of the...
There were a few done before the transfer of patients. There are readiness reports that people who visited these places made their comments, but it's not a formal order document. It's just a brief report.
But the few NGOs that you visited prior to issuing the licenses, those visits was simply to go and see how many patients can fit into the facility. It was like it's more like a possibility report. It's possible that if a kitchen is fit in here, cupboards are put in there, that wall is done away with, we can fit 50 or 60 or 70 people in here.
Not really, Council. It was looked at in terms of what needs to be in place. That was looked at before you say that this place can have patients.
Yeah, but it's exactly what I'm putting to you. It wasn't an assessment report, it's a possibility report. It's like, we go and look here and see whether or not it is indeed possible.
Yes, it
and based on that, hopefully possible, you then said, well, we can issue licenses. Let's go to volume 7, page 2424.
2424.
Yes. Are you there?
Yes, sir.
Do you know this document, ma'am?
Yes, I know this document.
What document is this?
This is the brief report. It's not an a audit. It's a report. It's sort of written in a report form.
But this is what you did prior to issuing the licenses.
Yes.
That's all that you done before you issued the licenses. Now, can you just explain what does this document tell us? In respect of, firstly, in respect of which NGO is this document?
It's in respect of Bokang Center. Just telling.
But look at the right top hand side. Who's identified there?
Myself and Mr. Tubani was responsible for this.
But the letterhead, District Swane Precious Angels House 2 Danville.
No, that is wrong. That's
I'm
not
still on
supposed to be on there.
2424, Council.
Yes, yes. My apologies.
Okay.
Justice.
Thank you.
That information is wrong. That's on this form.
So that's wrong. So this
Yes.
report is actually in for
Bokang Center. If I read here, Bokang Center.
All right, so let's go through that. Can you just explain to us how does this assessment work?
It was looked at the exterior, what is available, and in which area the NGO is. Also still outside what is available, then the interior, how many rooms are within the area, inside how many bathrooms, outside areas, how many bedding space there is, the kitchen, what is the content of the house. The water supply rehabilitation, will there be space for that? Administration area, is there a space for medication, safety features, what is available, ventilation, staffing.
Yeah, so, and you say, well, it's possible, if the following things are done, then it's possible that, people could be looked after here. Just
Yes,
from a
that is-
building's
yes,
perspective.
Yes.
Not taking into account medicine,
Listen,
food, all the...
There was nothing at that stage because there was no patients at that place.
So, ma'am, am I
But
correct?
what's the date here, Council? Can you see the date?
Justice, if I'm not
21st
mistaken...
February.
My apologies, ma'am.
21st February.
21st of February at the start date of visit.
Thank you.
So that is, we are in the final stages of the transfer already almost, and now we're at the position where we say, well, the building is semi in order to accommodate people. But ma'am, am I then correct to state that this was basically used to say that, well, not in all instances, but in some of them, in most, this was used to issue the licenses?
Yes, Council.
But in fact, there was no proper assessments done in respect of the food and the staff and the medicine and the linen and the clothing. And
It was just inquiries about that. And hence, as I've said, when I looked that was absent, I alert Dr. Manamela on it, and she says I must start looking for linen and etc., etc., etc. All the equipment, because there was no medical equipment in place, no first aid. So I had to arrange all those things.
when did you issue these licenses?
Prior to this visit, and the first of, it was, I think, the last week in March, the districts received the licenses.
You see that Dr. Manamela testified that, she signed licenses almost right through the year because we had a big discussion, big debate about the date, the 1st of April.
Since I've joined the provincial office, we've done it once a year.
Yes.
For these past 3 years, it was once a year.
Are you telling us now, ma'am, that the 27 NGOs that applied for licenses, or the NGOs that applied for licenses, all their licenses were issued or signed on the 1st of April.
Just, I think, a week before the 1st of April, it was signed. From the last week in March up to the 1st, the licenses were made and print out. So after that process, it was signed then.
So
it took about a few days to construct those licenses.
So you and Dr. Manamela's evidence is again at odds with each other?
No, that is what happened, sir. Normally, even let's say for this year, though that we follow proper procedures, but only after all work has been executed, the last week, 2 weeks in March, then the licenses will be printed to be ready for the 1st of April.
But why would she say differently?
I haven't done any licenses in between the year. I've only done it once a year for 14, 15, and 16. Only done once a year.
Who provide the NGOs with the licenses?
Give it to the NGOs,
Yes.
the district coordinators.
Do you know
It will
that some
then
of
be
the
signed.
NGOs said that, well, they didn't receive the licenses, or they received the licenses only in June?
I've heard all that, Council.
But we know, don't we? We're going to tea now. But the one thing we know is that the licenses were forged. They were not done in accordance with the law.
Yes, it wasn't signed by the HOD.
And you never checked to verify whether any of the facts on which they might be based were correct.
I did check, Justice, and as I've said, I even went back in
You won't change your
documentation.
evidence now
Yeah.
in full flight, are you? You're trying to do that, are you?
No, I'm not trying to changing my evidence. It was signed by Dr. Manamela, not the HOD.
I'm saying you told us yesterday that there were no district reports.
Reports, yes, there was nothing.
And that you were given some schedule from it, you started writing up licenses.
Using the budget letter, Justice.
Yes, and you took those to Dr. Manamela to sign.
Yes, Justice.
And you have already told us that you acknowledge that that was unlawful,
yes, Justice.
was reckless, and was fraudulent. Don't shake your head.
I said yes, Justice.
We'll adjourn for tea.
And there we have it as we tea for break 2 of the live Esidimeni arbitration hearings. Very, very, very intense morning for the Deputy Director of Mental Health there, answering questions. They've just adjourned for break. We will be giving you live feed as soon as it gets underway. For now, though, we take a short break here on the Newsroom. All your sporting highlights coming up with Valen Kirtley up next.
We are your eyes in all major events around the world.
A wonder not seen in the United States in almost 100 years.
It looks like the sky of a different world. You see the stars out during the day. You see a sunset 360 degrees all around you.
Before you leave, make sure that Rob Byrne is taking you through traffic alert all around South Africa.
All we can do is stick to what we do and focus on our own job and not focus on them.
The Boks will also don the red jersey in this match to mark the 25th anniversary of rugby unity in South Africa.
An update on all major currency to guide you. A story of women in jail told in pictures by Fatima Mir through art that will blow your mind. Set the agenda for the day with Morning Live.
Welcome back to Newsroom. Thank you so much for staying with us. Good morning to you. Let's bring you your sports news. And we start with an update from the Australian Open. Third seed Grigor Dimitrov survived a tricky test in fierce heat against young Russian Andrei Rublev to reach the fourth round of the Australian Open. The 6-3, 4-6, 6-4, 6-4 victory looked comfortable enough for the 26-year-old, but it was far from plain sailing on the Rod Laver Arena against the 30th seed who knocked him out of last year's US Open in straight sets. Dimitrov, a semi-finalist last year, will face the winner of the day's eagerly anticipated clash between home favourite Nick Kyrgios and Frenchman Jo-Wilfried Tsonga for a place in the last eight. Meanwhile, Rafael Nadal is on course at the moment and he looks set to progress to the next round. He easily picked up the first set against 30th seed Damir Zumhur and just closed out the second 6-3. In football news, the CAF Women's National Team of the Year, Banyana Banyana, will face Sweden on Sunday in an international friendly in preparation for the year ahead. Interim coach Desiree Ellis hopes fans come out in numbers for the team's first match at the Cape Town Stadium as it sets the tone for a year in which the team hope to qualify for the Women's World Cup.
Last year was a fantastic year for us, and this year is the beginning of a very big year for Banyana Banyana, starting off with Sweden, and then obviously the qualifiers, and at the end of the year, the big tournament to qualify for the World Cup. And after going to two back-to-back Olympics, the big cherry on top of the cake would be qualifying for the World Cup. But I think it's going to be a fantastic game on Sunday.
Well, the match between South Africa and Sweden will be broadcast on our sister channel, SABC 1. Kickoff is at 2 o'clock on Sunday. Staying with football news, this time in the ABSA Premiership, Ajax Cape Town coach Mushin Ettergral is excited about the Cape Town derby against Cape Town City tomorrow, but he's more concerned about easing the team's relegation woes. Ajax are 13th on the log, but just a point better than the bottom three clubs.
I know there are derbies in my own country. Football most of the time doesn't win, so hopefully we can attract people, come to the stadium and watch a nice rivalry that we can build on for the future of South African football, which is, I think, Cape Town a very important city for. And for us, for Ajax, it's very important, not only because of the derbies, also because of that we need the 3 points to get out of the misery that we are in.
Well, the Cape Derby is scheduled for 3:30 kickoff in the mother city tomorrow, and there's a number of fixtures around the country. Cape Town are hoping to keep pace with log leaders Mamelodi Sundowns, as Cape Town City currently sit in a third spot. Moving on to cricket now, Indian captain Virat Kohli should be feeling confident going into the final test against South Africa on Wednesday, despite losing the test series. Kohli was named by the International Cricket Council as World Cricketer of the Year. He was also named ODI Cricketer of the Year. At the same time, the ICC named their Teams of the Year. The world's #2 ranked bowler, Kagiso Rabada, is one of 3 South African test players who were recognised in the Test Team of the Year. Rabada, opening batsman Dean Elgar and wicketkeeper Quinton de Kock have all been included in the ICC's Test team for 2017. Rabada held on to the #1 Test bowler ranking for just a week, handing it back to England's James Anderson. The third and final test between the Proteas and India will begin on Wednesday at the Wanderers. Quinton de Kock, like Virat Kohli, was also included in the ICC's one-day international side of the year. He was named alongside batsman A.B. de Villiers, who says he's feeling great after making his return to Test cricket this summer after almost 2 years.
Well, obviously a great privilege to make that side. It's just great to be playing cricket. I mean, at the moment, the age of 33, and after the last couple of seasons where things haven't really gone my way, it's just nice to be enjoying my cricket, taking it day by day. I'm not looking too far ahead, which is quite important. But really loving the vibe in the team at the moment, enjoying each other's company, and that's really important and makes it very enjoyable.
And there is cricket currently underway down under. That's where Australian opener Aaron Finch scored his second consecutive one-day international century to help his team to 270 for 9 in the second ODI against England at the Gabba. Finch blasted 106 from 114 balls, including 9 fours and a 6, to follow the 107 he made at the MCG on Sunday. The Burley opener looked like leading Australia to a score well past 300, but his dismissal soon after that of Mitchell Marsh ensured England were able to keep the Australians scoring under control. English captain Joe Root took 2 for 31 and was the pick of his side's bowlers. The visitors, who suffered the embarrassment of not winning a single Ashes test, lead the 5-match ODI series 1-0. In cycling news, world champion Peter Sagan claimed the Tour Down Under's Osher jersey today as the Slovakian won the 4th stage in a sprint finish. The stage, a 128.2-kilometre route from Norwood to Uradia, was brought forward to 10:30 local start time to try and avoid the searing temperatures mid-afternoon. However, at the start of the stage, a thermometer on one of the race's motorcycles recorded the temperature as 44 degrees Celsius. BMC Racing, led by Richie Port, controlled the main climb of the day, with the Australian and his teammate Tom Bowley crossing the peak of the Norwood Summit Road almost simultaneously. However, Sagan had managed to stay in the pack on the climb, and the Bora Hansgrohe rider was too quick on the descent into Uradia. Sagan burst through the pack in the last 200 metres and beat South African Daryl Impey to the finish line. Sagan is now wearing the Osher jersey for the 5th stage, which is a 151.5-kilometre route from McLaren Vale to Wollonga Hill. The final ascent to Wollonga Hill, Australia's most well-known climb, could well determine the eventual winner of the race. In motorsport news, the arrival in the region of San Juan saw the Dakar Rally competitors tackle the longest special of the rally, totaling 523 kilometres. Weather and safety problems forced the organisers to cancel the stage for the bike and quad categories. But in the car section, Toyota Gazoo Racing SA dominated. Qatar's Nasser El Attiyah won the 12th stage to add to his stage win in the shortest stage of the race and take his stage wins to 3 during the 2018 race. The two-time winner finished just over 2 minutes ahead of French rival Stefan Pederhansel. South Africa's Janelle de Villiers finished 3rd, but remains 1 hour and 26 minutes behind overall leader Carlos Sainz in the general classification, despite the fact that Sainz lost around 20 minutes of his 1-hour lead when he ended 8th on the 12th stage. And USA Gymnastics has terminated its agreement with the Karoli Ranch in Huntsville, Texas, where a number of top gymnasts have said they were victims of sexual abuse by former team physician Larry Nassar. The facility has been used for regular training camps, but USA Gymnastics said in a statement it has cancelled next week's session and is exploring alternative sites until a permanent location is found. Earlier this week, 4-time Olympic gold medalist Simone Biles said she was sexually abused by Nassar and that it would be too traumatic to return to Karoli Ranch as she worked toward her goal of competing in the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. Nassar was sentenced last month to 60 years in prison on federal child pornography charges and is set to be sentenced this week in Michigan after pleading guilty to additional counts of criminal sexual conduct related to allegations he assaulted girls under the guise of medical treatment. The complex, opened by celebrated coaches Bella and Martha Karoli in the mid-1980s, played a vital role in making the US women's team a dominant force in global competitions. All right, and that's how we come to the end of your sport here on Newsroom. Have a great weekend ahead. It's back to Shantae.
Thank you very much, Valen. Let's have a look at our social media. We'll have a look at our question of the day. We were asking you, what do you make of the controversy that is actually happening between Chico Twala as well as Bongani Fassie with regards to the biopic and the making of the biopic of Brenda Fassie? Well, we had an interview with Chico Twala. Let's have a look at what some of your views are. Tibatso says, isn't Chico going to be portrayed on the biopic? What is going to happen here? Half a story because some UK firm gave Bongani some cash. Bongani jumped the gun in entering into an agreement with the UK firm. Of course, speaking to Chico Twala, saying he has no issues with the making of the film. However, he's not happy with the production company. Ora Matlalela says, I agree with Chico in this regard. Bongani must hang 10. good things don't come easy. Chico is right that only people that know Brenda Fassie should tell a perfect story about Mabr. Of course, this is on the backdrop of that interview that we did just a couple of moments ago. Chico is correct. Writing a movie like that, you need good research. Mogari must chill and listen to his advice. Well, yeah, we have been having a look at all the tweets that have been coming through with regards to that. And a very emotional Chico Twala there. You can kind of sense the personal sharing that he has for Bongani. It is quite sad. And for the sake of music lovers and movie lovers, in being able to capture the legacy of Mabr, we do hope that they can reconcile, put their differences aside and produce something great. For now, though, Phil Hawkins is standing by with your weather forecast.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let's take a look at that weather forecast today. We'll start off by taking a look at South Africa's central interior. Here we're expecting showers again this time, though, expecting it to develop into some fairly stormy conditions over that southern interior of the country. And the other news that we're going to look at, of course, are the widespread showers that are forecast for the southern coastlines of the Western Cape for today. Yes, that's right. We're expecting widespread showers there, up to an 80% chance of rainfall. Now, as we move on into tomorrow, that weather is going to continue. And in fact, we'll see that spreading up the west coast of South Africa, including areas such as Cape Town for the entire weekend, not only for tomorrow, but the following day as well, which is fantastic news for Cape Town. Now, bear in mind, it's only isolated showers, so it really won't make too much of a difference. But nonetheless, we are very, very thankful for any rain that we do receive in the area. A weather watch and weather warning for you. The weather warning is going to be for a felt fire danger over that northwestern interior of South Africa. And then we have a weather watch for gale force winds gusting up to 75 kilometers per hour in Cape Town and surrounding areas today. So a very gusty day there indeed. Taking a look now at what's going on in terms of your weather conditions around Cape Town. It's 26 degrees. Remember, it is windy there, but it's not raining at the moment. Most areas along the east coast are going to expect rainfall for today. Durban's at 29 degrees Celsius, temperatures in the 30s still forecast for the interior despite that rainfall. Now we move on north and our neighbouring states expecting a warm one as well. Temperatures of 33 degrees forecast for Windhoek under some rainy conditions there as well. Temperatures of 35 in Gaborone, 28 in Harare there in the north. Beitbridge is at 34 and Maputo at 28. Not expecting rainfall there in Maputo. It's going to be a bit of a wet day here in Antananarivo, 28 degrees Celsius forecast for the capital of Madagascar. Now, of course, as we know, we're expecting that tropical depression, which is, of course, a tropical cyclone that was moving through the area. And that, of course, is causing some rainfall in the area as well. That's expected to affect the southern regions. Now, Lilongwe is at 28 degrees. Lusaka peaks at 29. We're expecting temperatures to rise into the 30s around Kilimanjaro, Mombasa, Dar es Salaam. But a mostly dry condition forecast for these areas at the moment. We might see some evening rainfall, though. Showers forecast around Libreville, around Port Noir, Brazzaville, Kinshasa, Luanda. All of these areas expecting at least isolated showers. But for today, it's going to be another dry one in Bangui at 38 degrees. Now, temperatures are going to remain cool over those northern regions of Africa. That northern coastline is receiving a bit of rainfall, especially around the northern parts of Morocco. They're expecting some showers and thunder showers. As we move through into tomorrow, we'll see that entire system just migrating from west to east. And of course, that brings with it those cold conditions, which we'll take a look at in a second. But along that southern coastline of West Africa for both today and tomorrow, we do expect some very, very light rainfall in most areas. Now, taking a look at these temperatures, 27 in Massawa and Sanaa peaks at 22 degrees. Addis Ababa peaks at 23. So it's going to be a fairly mild one there, but temperatures are cooling down substantially around Tehran, around Damascus, 13 and 9 degrees respectively. Quickly taking a look at that northern coastline, as I said, those temperatures are starting to feel the effects of that low pressure, 17 in Rabat and Algiers. That's where we're going to leave your weather for now. Stay with us though. It's over to you, Shante.
Thank you very much for that, Phil. Well, of course, that brings to a wrap-up of Newsroom for this week. Of course, we do it every single day, Monday to Friday, between 9 and midday. Of course, until next Monday. Bye-bye.